of the City of St. Pete Beach. It is Tuesday, August the 8th, 2023. It is 6 p.m. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. City Clerk, if you'll please do the roll call.
Vice Mayor Grill.
Here.
Commissioner Frizlowski.
Here.
Commissioner Marone.
Here.
Commissioner Grouse.
Here.
Mayor Petrilla.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. First, we will have a presentation on the sign ordinance.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we got Philly De Maria from Kimley Horn to do that presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioners, pleasure to be in front of you here today. My name is Philip De Maria. I'm a certified planner with Kimley Horn, and we'll be doing a brief update on the sign ordinance today. Great. So just a brief overview of what we'll be looking at. We've been before you in the past just discussing the sign ordinance. We'll do an overview of just our general purpose and intention, assisting city staff with the update to the sign ordinance over time. We'll do a brief coverage of just the public outreach effort to date. And the third part is probably the most important piece, is your considerations for the update. So we'll review just kind of best practices changes, but we're also looking for some direction from the commission as it relates to certain, what we'll say, kind of discretionary aspects of the sign ordinance. So we'll be happy to take some direction as well as some of your thoughts and concerns that you might have today. And then we'll just briefly touch next steps. So I'll try to be quick here. Just a reminder, our direction and the overall purpose behind the sign ordinance was to reduce sign pollution and improve the overall look and quality, really the character of St. Pete Beach as it relates to signage. We were provided 4 overarching goals for the update: reorganization to allow for better, just better quality of life as it relates to the sign ordinance, promote higher quality signage through revisions to quantity, size, and design, providing procedures for compliance and enforcement, but also allowing some room and some flexibility and latitude for higher quality design, and then coordination with the city attorney as it relates to Reed versus Gilbert and some of the case law that we've seen come from other municipalities that have provided some precedent language and kind of guidance as far as sign law and its legality. General observations: when we did our original data inventory and analysis, we found that pole signs really dominate the landscape. Some of the corridors in the city have an excessive amount of signage, and it's not regulated effectively if the intention is to cut down on the amount of signage. As it relates to design, most signs in the city today are predominantly made of plastic. And some of the shopping and strip center signs do not match the architectural design of the building, so there's no relationship between signage and then the actual architecture itself. The city and y'all have taken great steps to improve actual city signage, but those great steps and the excellent quality of those signs and kind of the overall brand of the city signs hasn't really trickled down to those on private property. So we took a look at that, and as it relates to providing a higher floor as it relates to design and signs in the city. Just touching on our public outreach efforts to date, we provided both a visual preference survey in digital and physical formats to several groups of people. We had about 4 different public outreach meetings, and we had several opportunities where folks could come and speak to us. We held a meeting with the business community, the Gulf Coast Chamber, Gulf Beach Chambers of Commerce. And there were several considerations that came out of that. A lot of the direction was about visibility and how that's important to their businesses, and shorter signs may be hard to see. There was a consensus that different areas need different signage, so that context is really important as it relates to Paso Grill, Corey Avenue. Those shouldn't have the same signage standards as Gulf Boulevard. Maybe that's pretty intuitive to some, but to others maybe it isn't. And then some of the concerns that we had and some discrepancies as far as opinions that were as it relates to LED signs. And so we'll touch on that as far as direction from you all. We'd like to walk out of here with some guidance as far as what you view from a policy directive, how important are LED signs to the city. We also provided that visual preference survey that I mentioned earlier. We basically grouped different different cities, A through E, and we asked folks to select what they felt maybe provided them with the greatest sense of place as it relates to their city, and maybe some things that they would like to see incorporated within St. Pete Beach. City A ranked 1 or 2 by 62% of the respondents, followed by City D with 50%. City E was least preferred. Folks liked the design and materials in A and D, but didn't like the size and inconsistency of signs in City E. And then there were some general comments that came in specifically about St. Pete Beach as it related to the actual height of signs and concerns about damage from storms, that sort of thing. So this is just an overview of kind of our approach to the sign code itself. So we started with kind of a best practices update, looking at what other folks, whether they be sister cities or general best practices across the country as it relates to sign ordinances, what are other people doing? How can we modernize the city's sign ordinance? So we took a look at first the definitions, and we updated those definitions to match some of the typical language in other sign codes. Think about how signs are defined, right? A wall sign versus a pole sign, that sort of thing. The city was unique in that it had a lot of regulatory language incorporated into the definition, so we've removed those to avoid conflicting standards and also to streamline administration. And then we've removed definitions that reference sign content, and that's one of those pieces of kind of the legal aspects as it relates to freedom of speech, and that's a really important aspect to this. As far as organization is concerned, we looked to group signs where we could, just to allow for some ease of organization and administration. And we moved recurring standards that were found throughout all individual sign districts. We took those, we grouped them in one place so that we weren't repeating the same thing in every single sign district. And then lastly, we looked at consolidating. So if there were 2 zone districts that had very similar or sometimes exactly the same regulatory language as it relates to signs, we grouped those so that there are just fewer and shorter, it's more concise, and folks have a little easier time reviewing and understanding the sign ordinance. As far as substantive updates are concerned, we looked at non-conforming signs and variances as far as administration and enforcement procedures are concerned. And then from sign standards, we looked at general standards that apply to all signs in all districts for design and compatibility, standards of measurement, whether those are setbacks, height, or area, standards for specific sign types. We'll get into that. Think about like sandwich board signs, maybe regulating height to a more consistent basis. And then also setbacks, amount, and size as it relates to specific sign districts. All right, so we'll move right into the meat of this. We have a few questions for you. We're going to start with kind of a heavy hitter here, and that's LED signs. So right now there's an amortization schedule actually within the text of your sign ordinance, and it states that LED signs must conform with current standards or be removed by January 1st, 2027. And some of the examples of those current standards are that LED signs are only permitted within certain geographies. So from 75th to 37th on Gulf Boulevard, that's the area in which LED signs are permitted. So basically from here down to the Don, as well as where those can be placed on site, right? So can they be as part of a pole sign? Yes, currently they can. And they can also be part of a wall sign when they're within 10 feet. So there are certain standards as it relates to LED signs, but we're also looking for some direction as far as whether those standards are appropriate, whether you think amortization as it relates to January 1st, 2027 is appropriate, and then overall if we think LED signs are a good thing for the city as a whole. We have a few options in front of you here. We're trying to make this as intuitive as possible. So one would be maintaining as an option. 2 would be adding a policy for all legal non-conforming signs, and that they must be brought into conformance. And then 3 would be removing or amending the amortization schedule for electronic LED signs as a whole. So if anyone has any specific questions as far as this is concerned, be happy to answer them, and then we can get into it. Yes, sir.
A question on LED signs. You've talked about the signs that are affixed to buildings and pole signs. Are you considering, with regards to the sign ordinance, signs that are in windows, like a sign that says e-cigarettes and lotto tickets sold here in an LED fashion?
Absolutely, yes.
So what are you classifying those as when they're not on the building, they're not fixed to the building, they're not separate by a pole, but they're display signs, I'll call them that.
Yeah, great question. So those are considered window signs, first and foremost. And currently in the city's code, window signs are not permitted to be LED signs. Those are 2 separate things. So currently those are illegal. I can't necessarily speak to enforcement, but just from a code perspective, that is the case currently.
Thanks for that.
Great question.
So how do you define an LED sign?
Right. Yeah, it's actually the technology behind it.
It's a light-emitting diode, but anything with a light-emitting diode is an LED sign?
There's a specific definition that I can get for you.
Okay, because it's hard to answer the question without understanding what the question is.
Sure, yeah, but it's...
I mean, all lights are pretty much LED these days.
That's, I think a large majority of them are.
Yeah.
What we're seeing in a lot of other cities are either them being backlit in some sense, and maybe those are LEDs, and maybe that's...
Yeah, almost all lighting these days, unless it's really old, is LED.
Right, right.
So I didn't know if you meant, message boards as LED?
That's primarily what we're discussing.
That's what you're referring to as LED. Okay, not just any lighted sign.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
I think it's hard to answer this question in a just one pager here. How does this fit into an overall strategy of signage? I mean, you showed us, there were 4 examples. It's, I'll be very honest, disappointing to see there were only 56 responses. We have a town of 9,000 some odd people. We have 56 responses. So that's disappointing. As we get, within a month, we get more than 56 people coming into this meeting. So with varying opinions on lots of things. But what is does an LED sign fit into the overall strategy of the type of signage that we want that fits with the character of the city? I think many of us have an LED sign concept in our head, the Las Vegas Strip. I mean, that's the most garish example I can come up with. I've not met anybody who wants that. And we've got 1 or 2 of them in the city. But I don't know if we're not onto with question 2 or question 3 before we get to question 1 is, again, what is the overall look and feel of the signage, and how does that mesh with the type of city and the messaging of the city that we want it to portray? We've talked about we want to, we're known as a family-friendly city for our visitors. It's a family-friendly place to come visit. Does that mean there should be big, large, bright, garish signs? I don't think so. Personally, I'd say no. But it's hard to answer this question for me. These 3 questions.
Yeah, and let me chime in one aspect. One of the biggest complaints and concerns about LED signs is how often you change what's showing up in there. So when you're thinking of Vegas, you've seen like all these things like spreading out and changing colors and attention-catching areas. So that to me is where the biggest concern and problem is. There are some other uses, for example, at the gas station that changes their prices every day, and they need to have something way up there to reflect the price of the day for fuel.
What do you call the gas station, the Shell station on Gulf Boulevard in the Dolphin Village Shopping Center? What do you call those red and green lights? What are they defined as? Are they defined as LEDs? Are they defined as signs? What are they defined as?
The one that are just on the perimeter of the building?
Yeah, that light up the whole place.
Yeah, those are more like decorative signs. right? Yeah. But before, if you remember back in the 1960s and 70s, somebody used to get up there and change the sign. I think that
Right.
really is counterproductive, and I think it's good information to have. So it's static LED lights, and I think this goes to what Ward was saying, is probably appropriate in certain circumstances. But is how often it changes? If the only purpose is to get attention-catching situations, then that's really not the purpose of that. So all those decorative signs, which if you put them in Christmas or during a holiday, is fine, but you don't need to have them year-round, illuminating the entire place like a rocket landing location.
So that's why I was asking a question. When you say LED, I mean, I'm an architect, so all the lighting we design these days is all LEDs. I don't think we're saying no lighted signs. You're talking more about message boards?
That's correct.
Okay, so I would say I don't think we want those, do we? I mean, I don't know that we have a reason for it.
No.
I mean, maybe there's an exception. I know the Chamber of Commerce came here. There might be they're what I would consider a little bit different than an average customer. So, but I would say just in general, I don't think we want those.
And I would think it would be sometimes a safety issue. I mean, we don't want to distract people that are
Right.
driving down Gulf Boulevard.
Right.
We've got people crossing the street where they shouldn't be, in crosswalks and say, we don't want to take their eyes off of focusing on going down the road to look
Yeah.
at a sign that's changing or waiting for a message to change or something like
Yeah,
that.
so it sounds like there's a consensus. We don't really want message boards. And generally, now I just have to kind of say this, because you guys know I've been up here for a while. This signage ordinance comes up every few years. It's a big issue. Generally everybody wants smaller signs, wants to get away from pole signs, put them down lower. Then there's an amortization schedule that tends to change. It's a hardship on businesses. So this goes back and forth all the time.
Have
So I think
grandfathering.
that's what he's asking for, is general direction. I think we want to get away from pole signs. We want them lower. But I think it was the last time I brought this up. I know I've brought it up several times, the Shell station. That's lower, but it seems big for that small property. And the intensity of the light
Is there a
is
ratio?
not what I was expecting. When you take it, it's different. It doesn't look as big when it's way up there. You put it down on the ground, it looks pretty big. And I don't know if because they wrap the corner, they get more footage, linear footage, so that's.
Because if you have two frontages, you can combine the signs
Yeah.
that you get from this frontage and the sign you get from this frontage and combine that into one sign.
So I'll just give that as an example. I think that sign is too big. I think that could be miniaturized, and you'd still see it's a Shell station. You can't miss it.
Is there a ratio that we have to abide by for if you're on a certain size lot, you're only allowed to have a certain size sign?
It's the linear footage, isn't it? So I think that's what I'm getting at. I don't know exactly what the formula is, but that formula needs to be miniaturized, I think, a little bit, because that sign, as an example, I think is too big.
Yeah, I mean,
Doesn't fit the scale for the area.
there should be a maximum size regardless of how much footage you have or frontage you have on the street. Because next thing you know, someone's going to combine 5 lots and now you have
Yeah,
a
giant sign.
300-foot sign. And with the Jumbotron with.
Well, that's fantastic feedback, and I think that's exactly the type of guidance we're looking for.
Okay.
Very good.
So, I don't know how many, once we set this in motion, I think we have to understand how many this is going to affect and give some reasonable notice to owners, especially ones that just invested in a sign. And I don't know what that amortization is. I don't know if that's 3 years or 5 years or 7 years. I don't know what the appropriate time is, but I think we need to have some reasonableness with this too.
2027?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Because the sign at the church in Paso Grill has been there 3 years?
They'll get another 4, so they'll get 7 years out of
I
it.
don't know.
Yeah, that's the current code.
Yeah.
If you
okay.
just leave things as they are, it's going to be amortizing towards 2027, and they'll be gone after that.
And how long, do you know how long this has been in
The
the code?
last update was, I think, 2018.
Okay, so it's been 5
It was in
years.
reaction to the Reed case that he referred to.
Okay.
Which is a major case that talks about content neutral, and so you have to be super careful about not targeting the message of the sign, but look at the size, the place, the location, public safety, all of those things, but you can't regulate the content or message on the sign.
Okay.
Can we accelerate the 2027 if we want?
That becomes a legal question because you have people who have rights, and you might have challenges to that if you want to accelerate that. But
Could we get an inventory of how many signs fall into this category to know? Because we know we heard from the Chamber recently, the Chamber of Commerce, about their LED sign.
right.
I forgot there is one at the church, down at the church in Paso Grill.
Yeah, absolutely, we'll provide an inventory. We used to have one. We got rid of it.
Yeah.
No. But yeah.
Well, I mean, this
Well,
is,
City used to have one.
it's a little over 3 years away, so it'll be coming up pretty quick.
Yeah.
That way we can see who will know what the impact is of our potentially of our actions.
Right.
Or it may be a non-issue.
Right. And to answer your question, like amortization of things like signs are usually the most typical target of amortization is to avoid the taking of regulatory taking. So it's basically you're giving them fair warning to say once you move or whatever, or this date comes, you've got this long to get rid of the sign and conform to the new law. So I don't know why it looks close to 10 years almost if it was addressed in 18.
Yeah.
And it looks like it was a 10-year, which is a very reasonable. So I don't know if we take if we took another swipe at it and said, hey, we're accelerating the amortization to 5 years and you're 1 year away. So I'm not quite sure why we picked the 10 years, but
Right.
Probably to avoid impact, potentially to avoid financial impact to the sign owner.
Very good. Thank you very much. Right. Our next, we'll change the subject just slightly here, and we'll talk a little bit about design and compatibility. So we have a few examples, so this isn't the only slide I'll show specific to this subject, but basically right now there's no requirement in your code discussing the relationship between a sign and the building that it advertises. We've lined up some options here. So maintaining that the lack of recognition of a building and the sign and their relationship. 2 is adding a general statement requiring all signs to be compatible with the buildings to which they relate. And then 3 is adding more specific design requirements by sign type, freestanding signs, multi-tenant signs, and wall signs. And I'll just go briefly, and maybe we can come back to this slide, but I'll show you just a few options here for freestanding signs. So on these freestanding signs, you'll see a few options there at the bottom. One shows a sign that does not match the building in any form or fashion. The second one requires that there be some level of relationship between the architectural design of the building and the sign. And you can see that in that second photo. And then the third is what we say kind of like the premium option, if you will, and that's requiring a very specific type of look and material. And that photo is actually taken from Longboat Key in the bottom right. So high quality materials such as wood, masonry, metal, stone, glass, ceramic, etc. Other options on freestanding signs, and some of these relate to pole signs. Would you like to require that freestanding signs be placed in a landscape setting? That's an option that we see often these days, requiring there just being base landscape. The requirement, I think it was mentioned just previously about pole signs, and maybe there being an option to bring those down to monument signs, and that's reflected in the second one. And then there are specific variations that we see as it relates to twin pole signs, covered pole mounts, those sorts of things that elevate the design and look of the sign itself. And then as it relates to shopping center signs, once again, 3 options. In the bottom left, you can see there's no relationship, and kind of each individual business is allowed its own permittable sign. In the middle, you see that tenant panels are matching in color but not in font, so that there's some level of branding for these maybe national tenants. And then the third one is an example that shows that all tenant panels are matching in both color and in font. We'll take a pause there for a moment. Any thoughts so far? Any questions here?
Does our current ordinance get away from pole signs and go to monument signs?
It does not.
No.
There are some pole signs that have been grandfathered to height. And when the business is vacant for more than 6 months, then they lose the grandfathering in terms of height, but you still can have pole signs. I believe, can't remember what the height, new height, huh?
That's right.
What is the new height
35 is the height maximum,
today?
yes.
I prefer the monument signs.
So do I.
Yeah, I would
would-
say maybe from here on out, no more pole signs.
That's what I was thinking. I want to make sure that they can fit and it doesn't have some unintended consequences, but I think we'd want to move towards that.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, the best thing that happened from Hurricane Irma was the McDonald's sign got blown over. And they couldn't put it back.
Yeah.
Because I could see it from my house, and it was
Well,
terrible.
that's the reason why I asked. Could they not have put that back with the pole sign? That's,
I was told it was in code, or
yeah. And they did
it was
with the
really high.
monument
It was
sign.
really high.
Yeah.
So I guess in determining if we want monument signs, which I think we prefer the look of the monument signs, I guess the next question is, with the signs that we have out there, if these businesses were to convert to monument signs, is that feasible in light of the right-of-ways, the space that they have?
That's what I
Right,
was
yeah.
referring to. I don't want any unintended consequences, but that would be, I think, a preference that I've heard not just by me, but expressed by others.
Yeah, I know that, like, during some of the BOA meetings that I chair, or I was attending it as, especially in Gulf Boulevard, because they are constrained with their street parking, off-street parking, and then to put in a monument sign, you know, it's just, you know, adding misery to misery, you know, because they're already challenged with parking. So, you know, that's just, I know of a couple of them that were like that, but, you know, it may be possible to do it with some flexibility in the code.
Yeah, and I think that's what Philip was talking about, the fact that we can make things stricter to the extent that is possible.
Right.
Right, and have language that allows a little bit of flexibility, that if there's no way to fit in a monument sign, then, okay, fine, you'll have a pole sign.
Or like this one we have that says constructed of stone.
They,
So that's like really not a monument sign, but it's some type of hybrid where maybe it's a little bit more streamlined, so it fits better for the landscape, for the setbacks, for the parking.
Yeah, and that probably only really works when it's a single tenant occupying
Yeah.
the location. If you go back to the one on the left side, where you got 1, 2, probably 3 different businesses advertised there, it wouldn't work on the
We need a
sign
monument there, yeah.
on the small one. But if you, Philip, go to the last one where you had the different monuments, some of the monument signs can look
yeah.
very nice, especially
Yeah.
once
And you can have,
you get to at least to the mid level.
yeah.
I mean, yeah, the one on the right side looks really nice, but I don't know that we can get that far from where we are today. But we have a lot of what's on the left side, and it just looks, no,
Yeah.
not good.
Yeah, I think we've got to find the balance point. The one on the right, particularly because if we think about it, as Commissioner Grouse said, we've got people driving down our main artery, and can people see the sign? Can they see it quickly? Do they know where they're going, or are we going to stop or create potential safety hazards because people can't read the sign? The left sign, it's clear if you know what you're looking for. Well, we know what's there. I mean, it all jumps out at you. In the middle one, yeah, it allows them to have their corporate fonts.
Maybe to get everybody to slow down.
I mean, we are a tourist city, though. We don't want to be too sterile either. I mean, you know, we want to have some character available.
Yes.
I find the middle one actually easier to read than the one on the left.
I do
I
too.
think the
Yeah.
colors become a distraction.
And like you say, there's a lot of companies that their font, you look at that, you don't even have to read it. You realize what they are, or what it is. We don't have a lot of corporate out here on the beach, so it wouldn't be a whole lot of that, but
Yeah.
And just so you know, like exactly what Alex said is what you focus on is public health and safety, and like is it dangerous for people to slow down and have to try to read these things, and so when you're regulating them, that's the part of the read case is like you don't even discuss like what it says, but you talk about like, okay, well, here's what we're trying to achieve, public health and safety, and this is causing confusion on traffic, and even aesthetics are valid reasons for regulating signs.
So can we evaluate on a multi-tenant building versus a single tenant building and see, because obviously the single tenant, we may be considering a different type of sign than we're looking at. The multi-tenant may really require, if it's a monument, a certain type of monument that gets all of the tenants listed there. So maybe we break it out that way. I don't know.
It's a good observation, and in fact, most sign codes have it broken out that way: a single tenant signage versus multi-tenant signage, and some allowances for both of those. And I'd be remiss also if I didn't mention, the sign kind of overall guidance as far as best practices is evolving, because most people get places using their phone now.
I was just going to say that. So many people using their apps these days, they know where they're going before they get there. This might just be just to remind, okay, this is the place to turn, but I was thinking the same exact thing.
I think that's also very helpful guidance, getting back to maybe just aesthetics and look and feel, so we can take that direction if that's the consensus of the commission. Did want to just quickly flip back to the architectural discussion, not wanting to harp on it, but kind of relationship between building and the sign itself. Is there any interest in that? Do we feel like if we have
I'd like the
consistency?
color and finish. When you were saying architectural, I was thinking, that's kind of get into some subjectivity, but the middle one talks about color and finishes, not so much shapes. Mm-hmm. And I think that's kind of reasonable to have some relationship there, that just with color and finishes.
Personally, I don't mind the left one. It kind of matches the building. I mean, the building's bland. I mean, it's a plain vanilla building, and no pun, because there's an ice cream shop there, a very good ice cream shop, by the way. But
Yeah, that building doesn't have much character.
yeah, the building really doesn't have much care. Right? It's I mean, it's a
Perhaps it
functional
would be
building.
permitted.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
functional building. They're good, good businesses in there, but
The sign does match in color and
yeah.
Yeah.
But to the point, I think, further to the left, I mean, the feedback further to the left is more preferred than the right. The right's
well, the middle one would go away anyway, because that would be
Yeah.
So maybe imagine that being a
The
monument sign.
monument sign, still color and finishes.
yep.
Right, very good. We'll speed along. We're making good progress. This one related to wall signs and design. Once again, no statement on overall design currently in the code. And what we're seeing in some of the sister cities that we analyze, there's conversations in the code or guidance in the code that discuss wall signs not detracting from the architectural character. I think I'm getting a feeling in terms of maybe where the commission's general direction is elevating look and feel. But there are also more prescriptive sign codes. This one particular was taken from Miami Beach, which requires a very specific type of signage, very specific type of finish on that signage applied to a wall, cut aluminum individual letters.
Well, I mean, we have no desire to be Miami Beach. I think we've had that discussion.
Right, we've had that discussion.
The left side, it has character, right? We own it. There's a third business to the left, and they have a different type of sign.
I feel uncomfortable moving into that architectural realm and dictating architecture. I find it to be very difficult to enforce, very, very vague with regards to instruction to the sign owner. And we have such a lack of consistency throughout the city that we're never going to be able to achieve some compatible visual aspect of the city that all ties in. So
And
to
do we
start
want
with an architectural requirement, I just think is, I'm uncomfortable with it.
And do we want to aim for that? Again, I think part of the beauty of this city is we have character, and there's different things going on in different places.
So maybe erring more to the left on this one than,
I would say, yeah.
Yes.
What are you trying to get at in this? The one on the left has kind of applique signs. Is that what you're saying? That wouldn't be allowed and you'd have to do individual letters?
I think the discussion here particularly is the middle when compared to the left. So the middle, Harley's and Reserve a Life, those signs kind of reflect the building itself. Harley's has kind of a, what I'd say, like a kind of classic American feel, and the building has that red brick. And Reserve a Life maybe is a little bit more contemporary, and the building itself is a little bit more contemporary. Whereas our signs on the left side, there's really not a relationship between the building, right? And that's our, that would be the intent of the regulations, if put in place, would just be building that relationship between the building and the wall sign.
So if you have an ugly building, you have to stick with an ugly sign?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not...
And some people will do it on their own. For example, on the left side, I think that's Seagrave, right? Yeah. That sign is compatible with the building already. But they chose to do that. It's not because of code, they chose to do that. While Betty is really not compatible with the building. So it will allow, some flexibility, and people are going to do it just because they feel that that's looks nicer, but you have the flexibility. While on the one in the middle, you're kind of guiding them towards certain kind of design in the end.
I mean, who would be the arbiter of whether this looks like it, doesn't look like it?
No.
Right? Because somebody might look at the Seagrape sign and say, like the scene, oh, it fits. And somebody else might look at it and say, nah, it doesn't fit. It's not the right color. It's not the right font. It's not the right... I think if we're starting to dictate design choices, that makes it...
Yeah.
I don't know, we're regulating beauty. It's like regulating beauty it's all in the eye of the beholder. We're not in that business.
Yeah. So I think that's exactly what Commissioner Marone was.
I like to hear what I said repeated 4 or 5 times. It validates what I said. I like it. It's all right.
Very good. Thank you. All right, these next two are related to window signs and murals, so we touched on window signs briefly. So window signs currently, each parcel in the city are permitted to have one or more window signs. For residential uses, those window signs can't exceed 3 square feet of aggregate sign area, whereas non-residential uses cannot exceed an aggregate of 50% of any window surface. So we're starting to see maybe a little bit of a proliferation of window signs in certain areas.
That's what the problem is.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, proliferation within meeting the standards or outside of standards?
If you rationalize what this non-residential requirement allows for, 50% of the window surface. If you have 6 windows, that's 6 signs that cover half of the window space.
I understand.
Yeah.
But
And we have that all throughout the city, and some of the areas that you are pointing out is because on each window they have a sign, and they can use 50% of the space. And if they have, a panel that goes floor to ceiling, that's a lot of square footage.
So nobody violated what they were allowed to do. It's just now in hindsight, we don't like what they've done.
We don't like what we did.
What we did, yes.
Yeah, the rule that we set is just too much.
Understood. Okay. Just trying to get the problem out.
It's a great question, and we've taken a couple steps as far as maybe what are some options to take a look at that particular issue and what opportunities are there to look for solutions.
What are other cities doing as far as their percentages coverage?
They're reducing the percentage, or they limit specifically to not aggregating all window area on a particular frontage. So maybe limiting it to 1 window or 2 windows, something along those lines, so that it's not 50% of all glazing. So this slide actually shows a couple of options here for those commercial uses. Option A talks about allowing one sign per transparent surface, not to cover 50% of the window or door. So that sort of gets at it slightly. B would allow more than one sign per window or door, but reduce the percent of total area. So perhaps rather than 50%, it's reduced to 25% or 30%, something along those lines. And then C is, once again, kind of erring more towards the more restrictive option, and that's having window signs count towards the total allowable signage area. So not basically regulating them just like you would a wall sign or a sign on the frontage. So those are what other folks are doing, to answer your question, Commissioner.
So I think the message is, from me, is we want to reduce it. To what percentage? I'm not in a position to say what, 50%, should it be 30, should it be 20, should it be 10, or something else?
What you see on screen here, just for clarity's sake, is a 20% on that in that bottom right example.
Yes, I see, but I'm still not ready to say 20% is the right number.
But you're willing to say less?
Yes.
I think
Yeah.
50.
That helps.
Yeah.
That helps, because then we can work with less, and then we go from there.
Ends up just looking like a lot of clutter.
Yes.
I mean, that's really what it is. It's like,
You add a wall sign and a monument
you
sign.
know,
But if you have a lot of product and people want to advertise every product, as many of those
Yeah.
products as that they have, especially when they're on sale.
yeah, I know. That's
I
just,
won't give examples to it right now, but I think you know what I'm saying.
no, I know what you mean. It's just,
Is this predominantly like retail?
Yes.
Okay.
yeah,
You see this most often in convenience stores,
Right.
gas stations, that sort of thing.
yeah.
I'm not sold on more than one sign per store. And I think you're getting, again, you could easily have a store that has 8 windows.
Yeah, it's just a lot of clutter.
Yeah.
And we have businesses that have 8 windows and
Yeah.
8 signs.
Yeah, I mean, you could, if you had just a restaurant that's in the corner and you had 4 or 5 signs on one side and 4 or 5 signs on the other side, I mean, like, you could see maybe one sign per side, but, especially looking at the first option there, it's a lot of clutter.
But just for discussion, store owner A says, I need to differentiate myself from B. I think signs are the way to do it. Otherwise, I look just like them. How do I get the foot traffic to walk into my store versus the other store? Just for discussion. I'm not saying it's right or wrong.
Well,
But
the ordinance would put them all on equal footing. His
Yeah,
neighbor
but
can.
But I'm a business owner. I want to differentiate myself. If I want to be just plain vanilla, why do I need to be in St. Pete Beach?
Then you just say free beer.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even look at the signs, so it's not swaying me. Free beer, I might look at that sign a little bit more.
I hear what you're saying. One sign per, sure, it reduces the clutter. I'm guaranteed it'll look much better.
So maybe we can take a look at quantity and then also percentage and come back with some guidance on that. Okay. Very good.
Scratch the free beer.
We'd all be there. All right, great. Our last topic today is murals. So currently murals fall under artwork when they do not specifically convey the name of the business, basically when they don't have a commercial aspect to them as it relates to the business. These are considered an attached sign when a commercial message is included, but it's not explicitly stated. So when we were looking at the sign code, we thought it would be very important to both define what a mural is and then also define how it would be measured as it relates to the commercial message of the mural itself. So we have a few different options. First, of course, is maintaining that lack of specificity. And then 2 is kind of a best practice, and that's creating clear standards for the artwork that contains a commercial message. So 1 is furthermore explicitly state that the artwork that contains a commercial message shall be considered a sign, which must follow the same administrative procedures as any other sign. So that means coming in for a permit, being subject to regulations in terms of area, those sorts of things. And then providing further specificity as it relates to that mural, the guidelines that the portion of the artwork or mural that contains the commercial aspect of it, the name of the business or the name of the commercial side of the business, be counted towards the maximum allowable sign area. Now, you can probably guess where some of the controversy is here. Some people love murals, want to see them proliferate, don't see them as signage. So there is a little bit of a gray area there. So we thought it would be important to bring it before you and maybe get some guidance in terms of the commission. If they want to see, if you'd like to see more murals in the city, obviously fewer regulations would probably help that. But then the commercial side of things maybe become a little less regulated and more cluttered. So I'll put that up for discussion. Once again, if you have any questions.
Do we have problems with murals in the city? I mean, does there anybody complain about murals in the city?
I haven't heard it, but I do think we need to be a little bit more forward-looking. It's become very prolific in the city of St. Petersburg. I have no doubt it will start spreading its tentacles and moving out into some of the smaller cities, including here, where we may have someday folks, business owners who want a mural and commission one. So I think we need to be thinking in terms of it could happen. So let's prepare for it. And then when we're looking at it, I guess the two things that from what you brought up is, do we want to consider it as part of the overall value of commercial signage for that property, or do we want to consider it as a separate piece of artwork? And number two, regardless of whether it's one or the other, that we have some design review, some separate review of it before it goes on the building to approve the process of the artwork and the message. And while I don't necessarily like controlling messages, there can be some things that are very overt and maybe very not tasteful with regards to how we see our city. And in that case, I would say we'd need a review process.
So, two things. I think when it comes to defining a portion of this of the artwork as signage is something we can do and regulate the size of it. When it comes to the controlling the aesthetics of what artwork can have, I'm going to punt to my esteemed colleague on my right, because you can really get into some First Amendment issues in terms of what you might like might be very different than what I like, and vice versa. So if we're going to be the like police in terms of artwork, that's a slippery slope.
Yeah, this is definitely true. I mean, you're opening a whole door of, who's, just like your prior comment, like who's the arbitrator of art and what it says. But I mean, you do get into that. You do have some extents to where some things are graphic or offensive, and so we would have to look at what the extent is to where someone can go. But you can't. I think you would be getting into trouble if you open the door to just, hey, we're going to allow murals, and we're going to decide what's offensive and what isn't.
Yeah, because if we can't draw a line, you can draw a line, but that line might be so far that it offends a lot of people, but not everybody. So I don't really have the case law on it, but I'm sure there's plenty. Because, as you said, it is proliferating in a lot of places, and cities have embraced it actually in order to regulate it. Embraced it to the point where, we're okay as long as you do this. Well, see, when you say the regulation of it, it's to the point where they're regulating it, I think that's the conversation that we're having. So, what is your guidance on what other cities are doing to regulate it, and whether or not?
I'd be happy to look into it.
Yeah, they're able to stay.
We know what St. Petersburg doing. Right. I mean, St. Petersburg seems to paint every rock they can find, and which looks nice. Yeah. So are they doing something to regulate, or I will use the word regulate, to control it, or something? Because I haven't seen an offensive, in my view, anything offensive in St. Petersburg.
And the single largest mural that we have in the city is 82 degrees.
Which is kind of on the side, it's kind of hard to
It's
see.
on the side, but it's big.
It's
It's
big.
really, really big. Now, if you look at that mural, the portion of the mural that says 82 degrees is probably less than 10% of the entire mural. So that's what Philip was asking, well, do we want to consider that 10% as signage and the other 90% as mural? Or, you know,
I would say yes. I think we ought to consider whatever portion of it is a commercial message can be considered that sign for the sign ordinance.
okay, okay.
Sounds kind of logical to me. Otherwise, people are going to take advantage of it and get their sign area and then add murals with another
So it's
message.
similar to the top right, the photo in the top right. I think in the yellow outline that's the business name, which, unless guys like me put on their glasses, it's really hard to see. So,
But if we're going to allow these murals, then I do believe that we should be
Yeah,
looking.
I'll get the
right.
case law for sure
Right.
on it, and any local government
And
regulation.
that's really an issue outside of the sign ordinance, all right? So I think it's good to do them in parallel. Consider a commercial portion of sign, and it's a different topic about how we
Unless
regulate.
as long as we're going to allow murals.
Yeah.
Because of the sign ordinance, I guess we can say we don't allow murals.
Well, no, I think that's what you're going to look into,
You
right?
don't allow signage on murals.
Right.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, I understand now.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just graffiti.
Gotcha.
Unless you regulate it.
Yeah, I mean, sounds like I'm in the minority here, but to me, murals just look like graffiti. You know, and Commissioner Girl said earlier with the signs, well, that's nice for Miami Beach. It's like, this is great for St. Pete and San Francisco and a whole bunch of other cities. I'm not sure that. But that's my opinion. So, I mean, if I would do away with them altogether. I'm not sure that it necessarily adds to the character of the city. I think it always kind of looks like you're attracting an element that maybe you don't want to attract. And we look at St. Pete, and that's kind of the direction that they're heading.
Keep in mind that, like, I think that when you refer to Miami Beach, you also have to remember that they have a very strong historic preservation, design review boards. They have a very, very complex regulatory staff and boards that are skilled, and it's all around the deco districts. But they have historic districts all over the place. But their regulatory schemes are set up so that McDonald's, everybody complies with the sign regulations, but they have set up a very strong regulatory system under a historic preservation, thing. It's not just, hey, we're going to put a sign. I mean, there's a lot of structure there.
No, with anything, theirs is probably the easiest one to enforce.
Yeah.
Every sign has to be this tall, it's got to be made out of this material, it's got to have this matte finish, it's got to look like
Well,
this.
you go into
That's
the
it.
planning department and they'll give you say you want to paint
Yeah.
something,
Yeah.
they'll give you a sheet, here's the colors you can pick from, right? I mean, they're that strong. I mean, but that deco area was a disaster, though, at some point.
Oh, yeah.
And it was citizens that came in and
Right.
said, we're going to lose the strongest collection of deco
Yeah.
post-war modern designs, and the city finally started embracing it, and it's been a success, more or less.
Yeah.
But you're going to look into the whole issue of murals and do we allow them and how do you regulate them? This is really focused on if there is a mural, we're going to consider a portion of it signage, right?
That's accurate. Yep. That's correct. All right, very good. That concludes this particular presentation. Just a kind of guidance for next steps, give you an expectation for what will be coming before you. So with this direction, we'll circle up with staff and we'll be providing a final strike-through and underlined version of the ordinance. We'll present that to the LPA, the planning board, and then finally that'll come back before you over the next few months. So thank you for your time today.
Before
Once
you
again,
leave.
this is very helpful.
I'm curious to find out how you advertise or publicize the surveys. Because, again, to Commissioner Gross' point, 56 respondents seems incredibly low. I know if I just post something on Nextdoor, I'm going to get more than 56 opinions. Just
Sure, and maybe Alex or Jen would like to chime in terms of actual methodology, but posted it to the city's website. I believe it was also advertised through the Chamber of Commerce for all meetings, as well as the survey link itself was provided.
And through our social media, we pushed that.
I was going to say it went through social media. I'm kind of surprised.
There was a lot of, I mean, there was a lot of messaging on it
Yeah.
Right.
through the city.
Why?
Just
I think some people might have not felt comfortable with kind of the questions. You know, trying to look at those visual surveys and trying to understand. At least that's some of the feedback that I got from people.
Yeah.
Okay. No, that's helpful.
So before, I was going to ask, before we go present it to the LPA, do we need another review?
you can have another review if you want to.
Because I think there were a lot of open issues here, open questions
Okay.
that,
This is it's a big ordinance.
And I
It's
really-
affect a lot
yeah.
of things.
I think we should have a workshop. I mean, I'll say it now, I don't think this is an appropriate subject for a commission meeting. This is a workshop. We spent 1 hour.
Yeah.
And it should be a workshop, presentation should be a 10, 15-minute update. Here's what's happening.
Yep.
Let's move on.
So maybe for the next one, we schedule it as a workshop
Okay, we'll do that.
with the LPA or without?
I think before, because,
I'm saying with or without the LPA?
oh, I'm sorry, I think without.
Okay.
And then they can go through the strike-through version and present to the LPA.
I'm good with that.
And maybe we'll get more input from the residents.
Yeah.
Just wondering, and I don't remember if it's true, if this is true or not, but is there anything in the future land use element that talks to signage to give direction for any of this stuff? And would it be helpful to have some reference in the comp plan?
Potentially, I think that's a good thought. There's guidance as to land development code regulations as far as embracing and elevating overall aesthetics and design within the city, but I don't think specifically to signs, but that's a good thought.
Okay.
Great, well, thank you for your time
Thank you.
today.
Thank you.
All right, next we have a presentation of the Gulf Boulevard safety.
Yeah, I had requested this through the city manager. We had talked about this some time ago. We had, those horrible, unfortunate accidents. There's been a lot of work done. And then publicly, at least from my perspective, I haven't heard anything. So I asked if we could get a quick update, just what's happening and how to move forward. Excuse me.
Good evening, everyone. Michelle Gonzalez, Community Development Director. So my presentation is going to be just a quick update. We started last year, November 22, we had passed a task work order with Ford Pinellas and Kenley Horn to do a Vision Zero Gulf Boulevard study. So it's really looking at improving the safety of the boulevard and how we can look at engineering-wise, and a big focus of it was partnering with FDOT, making sure they were involved and accepting of our plans and support, and then we're going to be discussing with them how we can move forward in the next steps and implementation. So this is just really an update of where we're at in the study. So this slide just outlines that process. In November, we started to kick off the study. In February, we had our first community input meeting where we had people attend and highlight areas of concern. And we also have a website page dedicated to study where people can still input and provide feedback to the initial plans that we presented at that meeting if people want to catch up on there. And then to present, we've been working with the consultants on concept plans. We just met with FDOT recently, presented those plans. They're reviewing things in more detail. It's going to give us some feedback on what we've developed so far. And then we're looking to hold a series of stakeholder meetings with some residents and business owners once we get those comments and the plans updated, that draft version, get a preliminary feedback, and then we'll move to a community meeting. Some of the potential short-term improvements that we're looking is improving intersection pavement markings, updating signage. There's a lot of stuff that's just been, FDOT has to put on the radar just to update and maintain. So improving signage and intersection and crosswalks. Some of our mid-block crossings, what we found in the study, aren't at the latest standard that FDOT would require if they're putting one new today. So those are some of the items that we would be looking to improve in the short term. Looking at automated pedestrian crossing and signalized intersections and lead pedestrian interval crossing. So looking at how we can time signals so that gives pedestrians a right-of-way first before the light turns green for cars to go. Those little things can improve, and that's just with signal timing. And then the study is recommending adding some additional mid-block crossings in key locations, so we'll have to work with FDOT to do some studies on there. For midterm is looking at different projects to see where we can expand and require the 10-foot sidewalk requirements, reduce or eliminate driveway opens when possible, improve ADA curb ramps, tactile markings, and adding lighting near crosswalks. And then long terms is potential roundabout at Gulf Boulevard and 35th, and also at Gulf Boulevard and 75th Avenue, install protected bike lane intersections and other signalized intersections, install a protected bike lane, which may require moving the curb line along the boulevard, landscaping buffers where space allows, and construct a beach path to provide alternative pedestrians for cyclists. So just kind of a comprehensive look of how we're addressing issues on the boulevard. And the next step, so we're looking through August to start scheduling our stakeholder meetings from August into September, and then looking at a second community meeting, probably now mid-September, and then final presentation to the commission in October. So just kind of a quick overview.
Maybe sure you want to go back to the last slide. I just wanted to see if any of the commissioners had any questions on any of the short, mid, or long-term strategies there.
I do have one question. So you are conducting mid-block crossing studies in key locations. Would that include Blind Pass Road also? I know we have a couple of areas where we really need.
We'll have to look at that separately, because this study really is focusing just on Gulf Boulevard from 75th to 35th. That's not within the scope of this effort. But we can, if you have areas of concern, you can send them to me, and we can talk to FDOT about that and see what they can do.
I've spoken to the city manager about them a couple times. There's a couple areas where we really need to get some mid-block crossings signals there. So, okay.
We had some called. This is all good. So thanks for the update. But we had some initiatives. I think with the chamber, they were going to. We were talking about giving out cards in the hotels to guests. They were talking about maybe have the hotels for visitors give them a write-up about where to cross and pedestrian safety. We had a citizens group who was, I mean, they came in here a few times, but we haven't seen them recently. Are those efforts still all going?
I believe the chamber still provides those materials. The citizens group, we actually met with one of the members last week on Friday to kind of talk about revamping. They want to go to one of the hotelier meetings to pass out their cards and make sure that the hotels are aware of their program and can dedicate, relay that information back to their staff and get more of those supplies to them. So we're still working with them in tandem, separate from the study.
But you're using them as a sounding board to go through these recommendations, right?
Some of the members will be part of the stakeholder resident group, but we're also reaching out to some of the people that have already provided input online to see if any of there's interest, because we want to get at least a group of 10 people.
So on the short-term improvements, well, all these improvements, first off, Gulf Boulevard's not our road, so we don't have direct control. We couldn't paint it tomorrow as we could some of our other roads. So are we getting the support, and are we Ford Pinellas, are they engaged, and are we getting the support to get, we need to get stuff done, because we really haven't changed, and it's not a criticism, it's just, I know this takes time. How do we get these physical improvements done to improve safety quickly?
Well, part of the reason why we have FDOT involved, a lot of the short-term stuff, that list of recommendations that we're coming up with, they're reviewing, and then we have a follow-up conversation we're going to have after all of this to talk about how we can go about implementing, because they have some programs, especially with pavement markings, adding signage, they can implement those changes quickly. And then some of to add the mid-block crossings, they're the ones that are going to be doing the study. So being part of this or aware of some of these issues that they've probably, because they have multiple counties that they are in their purview, so being involved, they're aware, and they're going to start planning on adding some of the small, short-term stuff that they can do, and then we're going to have a conversation on implementation in terms of midterm and long-terms, how we can get funding for those.
I've got a question on the long-term improvements, that first one about roundabouts. So who is doing that? So one of them's at the Bayway in Gulf Boulevard, and the other one's at 75th and Gulf Boulevard. I'm just trying to envision roundabouts there and how they would be better. So who is conducting that? Is that us or is that DOT?
So that would be a follow-up separate study from there. Their DOT is looking at preliminary analysis on it, but that was something from an internal staff meeting of recommendations to explore.
Okay.
So that's just where those go.
Yeah, because I think the one that they installed in Terra Verde has got mixed results. I'll just call it mixed.
That's my reaction too whenever I've seen them done. I remember years ago when Clearwater did it out at Clearwater Beach, and it was sort of a, anyway, I don't want to sound too skeptical. I'm open to any solutions, but I'm just trying to visualize how that would be an improvement at either one of those two locations.
Mr. City Manager, I think you had said to me at some point that the Safety Pelican program,
That's through some of the resident group.
what's the name of that program?
What's the name of the group that?
It's called Safety, and then they have an acronym for it. So I don't have it.
Yeah, the Safety Pelican is part of what they came up with.
And is that in conjunction with the Sheriff's Office?
No.
That's the resident group that got formed as a result of the accident that happened. And so it's a lot of 12, 15 people that are just resident based, and they're trying to promote safety on the boulevard.
Do we have any involvement with the Sheriff's Office as it relates to their communicating to the bars and restaurants about the safety of the patrons and their crossing Gulf Boulevard after drinking? Any type of safety measures, warnings, putting something up, a sign inside from the Sheriff's Office that says, hey, if you're drinking, you shouldn't be crossing Gulf Boulevard, you cross at the crosswalk, something like that.
I could follow up with them. I know we had earlier this year a meeting with FDOT and the Sheriff's Office because there was some funding available through FDOT to do some more educational campaign, and they were going to prioritize our area, so I just have to follow up on what exactly they've outlined there, but that was really between FDOT and the Sheriff's Office and a grant that they received.
Thank you.
To me, it's really important. I think we all see it. People are crossing the street when they're not that far away from a legitimate crossing. Sometimes I think they don't even realize that they're wearing dark clothes. It's at dusk and it's dangerous, and they feel like that middle turning lane is a safety area. Well, that's also a turning lane.
Yeah.
So all a car has to do is go from the fast lane into that turning lane, and boom, there's an accident. It's just kind of shocking. And I see it with parents with little kids.
I saw a lady with 3 kids.
Yeah, man.
With all their beach stuff in the middle of the road.
Well, I think you see it on a daily basis with employees.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see
mean,
all
it's-
that all the time.
There's a stop sign, there's a crosswalk, and a stoplight, and they're walking between all 3 all the time.
Yep.
I think one of the questions I have with this is, because this is reactive, right? We have a problem, we're looking to see how we can address the problem that we have, or how we can mitigate the problem that we have. What are we doing to looking at the source of the problem, which is the number of cars and the number of people on Gulf Boulevard? And then what are we doing with the future in mind if we're looking at proposals to increase the number of cars and the number of people on Gulf Boulevard? Because some of these measures, one could look at objectively and say you're actually going to exacerbate the problem, right? By putting in a time delay from when pedestrians, I'm not saying it's a bad idea, I'm simply saying if you let pedestrians walk first, 10, 15, 20 seconds, you're holding everybody at that light for longer times. If you're adding more pedestrian crossings down Gulf Boulevard, now you could be in a position where just to get from, Publix to Corey Avenue, you may have 10 of them. And it may take you 10 minutes, 15 minutes to go 1.5 miles. And so my question, just so I can restate it, is what are we looking at, not just reactive, but preventative, and with the future in mind, right? So that we're not aggravating the problems.
Well, Vision Zero is really about safety, and one of the things you want to do is reduce speed. So having people, if it takes you longer because there's more crosswalks and you're going slower, I mean, that's a good approach in terms of addressing safety because people aren't speeding down the boulevard. You know, we're looking at extending medians. That makes the perception of driving more narrow, so that prevents speeding from going through. And, you know, right now it feels like a 5-lane highway. So
Have they talked to the, for example, the fire department, and how they feel about medians?
well, they were invited, and medians are, there's an access management study that would go involved in there, but, you know, that is pretty standard practice in a lot of places. Medians are not, you know, everybody has fire service, and there's still medians around, so.
Yeah, because I've sat behind an ambulance one time, I mean, more than once, unfortunately, where the ambulance couldn't move because they were gridlocked. There was a stop sign, I mean, there was a stoplight, there was a median, both lanes on both sides are full, and just lights going, and I can't get out of the way, they can't get out of the way, and it's just, they're stuck.
Okay.
I'm just asking questions, right? I'm not,
Yeah, no, I understand.
And so I'm trying to hear what the thought process is from the consultants, like, what are they telling us? Are they saying medians are not a problem?
Well, it's not going to be one continuous meetings, but there isn't a potential to expand them, and that helps slow down cars. I mean, they were looking at safety, so we do want to narrow that vision of the perception of a wide-speed highway.
And medians also create a refuge for pedestrians crossing the street. It's not the same thing to be standing in the middle of a turning lane that be standing on a protected median that.
But that's exactly what I'm talking about. Now you've put a place where they feel safe to cross where they shouldn't be crossing.
Why shouldn't they be crossing?
Because it's, no, there's a median there. Crosswalk is 50 feet this way, stoplight is 100 feet this way, but there's a really nice median right in front here. I can just cross because I know I'm going to be safely stuck between two trees
And
where no one can.
That might be fine.
So they're crossing not in a designated crossing area, they're crossing in the middle of the road.
If that's what we're designating, you know, that might be fine too.
Jaywalking also isn't illegal in Florida, so technically anybody can cross where they want.
I'm not saying it's legal or illegal.
At least
I'm
if you
just-
have a median that gives someone a protected barrier where they can cross two lanes, have a hardened space that cars can't go on, versus a turn lane that has just lines, and then they can cross the next two lanes. So you're still, even if they're not crossing where you want them to cross, they're crossing in a safer environment because they have a refuge.
The frustrating thing is that we would like to force good behavior, and we can't.
Right.
And that's the frustrating thing. So we're reacting to bad behavior,
Yeah.
and it's frustrating, but that's the cards we're,
That's
to some degree, we're dealt. There are some controls that we do have in place.
Well, that's why I'm asking on the proactive side, right? Where right now we're looking at 50,000 cars on Gulf Boulevard per day, in case anyone wants to see the DOT numbers, roughly 20-some-odd thousand on one bridge, 20-some-odd thousand on the other bridge, whatever it is on the north side. We're not addressing the real problem, is the volume.
I mean, we'd have to put flashing signs coming off of Corey and the Bayway, which I'm not adverse to, that say, they don't have to be flashing, that says, parking
LED
full.
signs?
Parking full. If the parking's full, there's no parking here on St. Beach if it's full. I mean, that's the only way to have people turn around, and I don't think they will. They'll drive around until they find a spot. So again, you have people, you're trying to control their behavior, you can't. So now you're being reactive to the bad behavior. And I think that's what we have.
Are we, for some of these measures, creating the potential for more bad behavior is the question? Because what I see oftentimes, you see it all the time, they stop, then they just step on the gas, accelerate as fast as they can, slam on their brakes again, then they accelerate again because now we've made it towards too many stops.
But if you can synchronize the stops, which is one of the things that Michelle is looking at, you would only stop once because you'll stop, is synchronized with the lights.
So are the pedestrians going to stop and wait because there's a red light flashing for them so that so that the car can go?
Yeah, and that happens in many places.
Okay. Well, no, because right now it sounds like,
Right.
because the way it works now is,
It's a light that you press when you get there.
Right, it's automatic.
As opposed to having a timer that says you can cross now, and when you stop, the entire boulevard stops. Okay?
Right.
And then people can cross, and then all the traffic flows naturally and normally,
Yeah.
without having multiple starts and stops.
Instead of having it on demand when you
It's having
press
it
that
right-
button,
having it
the
on the
lights
right,
start
so
right
it'd be more
away.
like a regular
Synchronized.
Right.
intersection where you press and you wait for the green light.
Right, on a timer.
Yeah, yeah. Because there was a point in time, not too long ago, we didn't have any of those pedestrian crosses. You had to be at a traffic light to cross. And I think as they started to get put in with us working with DOT over time, I thought it was a good thing. But it is kind of crazy, like that one at 7-Eleven on a busy weekend.
Oh, yeah.
It's never stops flashing, so the traffic backs up and then people get frustrated. And so, I don't know, I think we just got to look at that over time. But I think you're right that these pedestrian crossings are good, but at what point in time are they going to be too many of them, hold up too many things, unless we put them on a timer?
Right. This mid-block, and the mid-block, part of the problem is we don't have, I mean, it's not, unfortunately, it's more than 50 or 100 feet, which drives people just to go, just cross right where they are. Why do I want to walk 3 blocks that way and I'm trying to go 2 blocks that way? But if I go that way, I got to walk 4 blocks to get to a crosswalk. So,
And I think talking to some of the businesses that have a lot of traffic, I mean, I think they should start with their employees, because they're certainly not telling them, be careful. I mean, you see it, well, where I live, I see it all day long, nonstop. And there's a stoplight, there's a pedestrian crossing and another stoplight. And the entrance to the building is by the stoplight, so there's really no reason to cross anywhere but there. And then just creating an unsafe situation for everyone.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
thanks, Michelle.
Thanks.
All right, let's begin the meeting. All right, any amendments to the agenda, please?
Yes. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move item 4B, the sheriff's contract, out of consent. I suggest we combine it with a discussion item 7B, which is on sheriff's staffing. Combine both of those and make those an action item.
Okay, we'll make that action item 5E.
5E.
Sorry, yeah, 5E.
The second item is have every meeting add a discussion item on the city manager's expenses, as we agreed to review those in the meetings here. And then
Okay.
And then my third, I would recommend we remove item 6A and move that to a workshop. I think we need to have a lot of discussion on that. Information came out just a few days ago. I think we will wind up having a discussion as long, if not longer, than we had with the first presentation. And I would think it'd be more productive to have it in a workshop. Have the discussion, then we can come in here and just work on the resolution.
Should we have that as a workshop with the Historic Preservation Board so that they can
Sure.
kind of help us along with their thought process? And
Yes.
Would you care to hear from Chair Lowry, who is here tonight, regardless of our removing it as a resolution item, since he is here? Or would you rather just wait to hear from him at the workshop?
Me?
Well, since you're...
I think I would defer it and then just do it all at once.
Okay.
I appreciate Mr. Lowry coming out, but I've,
I was going to say, as long as you set a workshop relatively soon, that's all fine. That's a good idea.
any objections to that?
No?
Okay. Any other changes?
Yeah.
thank you.
Go ahead. Anybody else?
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Two discussion items I'd like to add. One on the parking app contract. That's the parking application that we have out in Paso Grill. And the second one is update status on beach renourishment.
Anyone else?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, we need to move item 7A to an action item, so it will become 5F.
Okay, and I will add a discussion item, 7F, regarding the ongoing situation at the Don Cesar boat ramp. Can I have a motion to amend the agenda as suggested?
So moved.
Second. City Clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
Commissioner Frizowski,
Yes.
Commissioner Marone,
Yes.
Commissioner Grouse.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Grill,
Yes.
Mayor Petrilla,
Yes.
motion carries.
All right. City Clerk, do we have any audience comments?
Yes, that is, right? I'm sorry.
Tanzarita?
Please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, my name is Jeff Catanzarita. I live at 109 7th Avenue, Paso Grill. Yeah, I was here at the last meeting. We kind of got broadsided with the county, and I was wondering, where, now that we have heard that, and the beach replenishment, what's the plan? Because we didn't seem to really have a plan last time. There was, talk about the bed tax, this, that, but the $80 million, the core money, is the plan, I hope. There's no other plan, right? That's it. Am I right in assessing that?
This is your time to make comments, and then if we're not asking questions at these comments.
All right.
I will address your question because I think some people will have questions about this, and there's some additional information since that meeting. But do you have any other comments?
Well, my comment is I want to get the beach replenished,
Right.
As soon as possible, since we have this federal money. And that's my, if that's how this goes, then fine. I thought I could ask a question, but that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my concern. And the other thing is, the 7th Avenue dock has a hole in it for the last 6-7 months. I was hoping, because of the fire, I was hoping to get that fixed. Outside of that, that's it.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
Let me just quickly make a couple comments on the beach renourishment. So the county was here, and then the very next day, they were at the Big C meeting, which is the Beaches Mayor's Council with the 11 big beach cities. Their game plan right now is, as she stated when she was here 2 weeks ago, the county is moving forward with putting a plan in place. Should the funding from the Army Corps not come through, they will have plans ready to go. But even with that, that's still a 1.5 years away, because they're starting essentially from scratch. So if the Army Corps falls through, then that's the plan, is for the county to step in and do that. The approach for the Army Corps is a multi-pronged approach that some of the mayors and others, commissioners have, county commissioners and state representatives and federal representatives have taken. One is a administrative approach, because the whole thing is administrative, it's not legislative. So it's not, Congress or the White House or anyone passing a law that says we can't renourish, but rather this is the policy, that this is how the Army Corps at the headquarters has chosen to interpret it, which is actually different from the way that the Florida office of the Army Corps chose to interpret it. They initially said, we'll go ahead, we'll cut out Silver Sands, we'll just go ahead and renourish Paso Grill, everything else, we'll skip Treasure Island, all the other issues, and we'll just keep going. But then they were given from up high instructions that no, unless everybody signs the easements, no one gets it. So even though we had an agreement, and so we're approaching it from the administrative side to see what pressure we can put on the administration to change their mind. And then there's also the legislative approach, where we're working with our representative, and we have a meeting with our congresswoman, with some of the other mayors in I'm still waiting for confirmation when that meeting will be. She's pregnant, about to give birth, so it might be a little challenging. But we do have a meeting scheduled now then to see what movement we can make in the House at the federal level. So the issue is being dealt with. But even in best case scenario, if we had to go out on our own with the county, we're looking at a year and a half from now. The ideal scenario is for the Army Corps to come around and say, look, we'll go ahead and take care of this problem because they already have the plans in place and permits and everything else, and they could mobilize within several months. But that's not looking particularly hopeful at this time.
Mr. Mayor, maybe you can tell us, is it true, based on what the presentation we heard last week, that if we, quote, go it alone, meaning the county does it and we go it alone, then we will lose the opportunity for future federal funding going forward?
No. So let me try to explain it as best as I understood it. The way that the county explained it was that if we do renourishment our own, the Army Corps, in the case of a catastrophic event like a major hurricane that washes away all of our beaches, that they will not show up. That does not mean that they would preclude us from getting beach renourishment in the future. I'm not sure why they would show up for non-emergency, and I don't know how that would play out in reality for them to say, no, we're not going to come take care of you.
Did they tell us how they were going to bridge the gap between the $36 million that's there now and the $80 million they need to do the work?
So the county has, the way I understood it is based on, there's been some discussion of increasing. So right now from the bed tax, 0.5 cent goes towards beach renourishment. It's either 0.5 cent or 0.5%. It's a very small amount. And the revenue for the last 12 trailing months is roughly $96, $97 million for all of Pinellas, of which, by the way, St. Pete Beach is responsible for about 15%. So a significant chunk of that. They say that they have the money necessary to do it one time. The issue is the ongoing renourishment, whether they have the funds. And if you look at the amount of bed tax taken annually, yes, the money is there, but are the county commissioners going to vote to appropriate? So this is the next issue, is we need the county commissioners to vote to appropriate a larger percentage of the revenue from the bed tax towards beach renourishment.
If we had the city owned the Silver Sands property necessary to do the work, we could get this started by the end of the year, beginning of next year. Is that right?
So the Silver Sands, my understanding is, does not need beach renourishment. They may have had in the past. It seems right now they're actually having more sand than they need. So there's not an urgency there. So when the county's looking at it, they're saying, well, we only need, south really of the Don Cesar, Upham, right, the things that were on the schedule with the Army Corps. But the county can't look at it just as St. Pete Beach. They're looking at it and say, we need everything from here to Sand Key. We need all the things, so that we, just an economy of scale, the number of cities and spots that they're going to renourish.
And if I may, on Silver Sands, which is in my district, people are quoting Silver Sands on a vote from 2014. I've been in touch with the president of the master board and gave him some contacts to speak with at the county, because they haven't had a vote. They haven't said no. They said we need to understand this better. I mean, they're property owners. They want to protect their property rights.
Yep.
And they would need to understand, why does the Army Corps need a perpetual easement on all that property? And as the president said to me, how do I stand up in front of my residents and suggest they vote one way or the other when no one's even talked to me? And more importantly, how does he convince the residents to vote one way or the other? I mean, they're property owners. And then people throwing out the word eminent domain left and right.
No.
Yes, but it also gets people worried. Wait a minute. We're not even talking to me. Yes, it's a problem. Let's try and find a solution. Eminent domain, it also takes a long time and is expensive.
I don't think that's a real real solution.
It's been thrown out several times.
It's been thrown out, and it was at the
And
last
hopefully-
mayor's
hopefully
meeting,
thrown out.
it was thrown right back out where it belongs.
Okay. Anyway,
Yeah, so that's where we are. We've got people working on the administrative side of the Army Corps, on the policy side, because that's really what this is a policy issue. Got other people working on our Congress people in the Senate and in the House. Got other people working through other means that I was told have some, and then the county's working on it as well.
So is this city willing to take the risk of accepting a one-time county renourishment and forfeit the what we can get from the federal government going forward?
So my understanding is, again, that the Army Corps will not come in the case of an emergency to renourish the beach within a certain distance of where there's a property that did not sign over. Right, so they would look at it, and again, there are people that can better explain this than me. This is just my recollection of how it was explained. And it's not that you lose the ability to get the beach renourished in the future, because in the future, if they get the easements or there's a policy change, right, if there's a new person in charge of the Army Corps who says, and the other thing is, just to kind of give you more context, this is happening to every beach community almost everywhere, because they said this is happening in New York, in New Jersey, which had Sandy. It's happening in the Carolinas. It's happening in Florida, so it's not limited to just the state of Florida.
Because we are one big storm in Paso Grosso away from my house being a houseboat.
Yeah.
That's not an exaggeration.
That's not hyperbole.
We have our dunes are cut in half already, and we're not far from the bulkhead.
and was there any progress or on the Treasure Island, because it's not just St.
Year
Pete
and a
Beach,
half.
we're tied with Treasure Island, and my understanding was they had a much more complicated situation than we had.
There's no progress on that. Their properties are much more cut up, and there's actually a website that you can go and you can look at and see where the easements have been granted, where they haven't been granted. We're at about 50% in Pinellas County of easements having been signed.
Well, I don't understand why they can't break us up. We've had plenty of beach renourishments that I'm aware of where Paso Grill was the only thing that got renourished.
This is
And
straight from
Upham
the
was
top.
the only thing that got renourished. So I don't know why they're all of a sudden now linking.
I've seen emails from the county saying that they would break us up if we could get Silver Sands on board.
Yeah.
Now,
Well, the
this
whole
is-
Silver Sands thing is a little bit confusing too, and I appreciate the new information, but Kelly Levy said that all of that sand has been nourished sand, so they consider all of that public land anyway to their seawall. So I don't know if that's what the county, state, and federal government feel. Why didn't they need to sign them off then? Why did they even need a sign off if they're already saying it's renourished sand there?
I think because they
If
never
I may, I think the maps that I have seen show two different lines. There's an erosion control line that
Right.
currently exists and it's in place, which is just to the west of the dunes. Okay, and it
Okay,
kind of
right.
traverses around that area. The map of the easements that they're asking for, I believe, goes almost to where their retaining wall is.
Okay.
So just to, so
So that's the disputed area.
that's the area where now they're asking.
Okay.
That's my understanding now. No, this is way outside of what I normally do, but it's what I understand.
Yeah, and to add to that, going back to, we have a settlement with Silver Sands condominium, and, they at the time anyway, they had a dispute about the validity of that erosion control line due to a technicality of how it was recorded, and we did tons of research on it. But I'm guessing, it seems like there should be, a win-win somewhere in there, because no one's ever really going to be utilizing the dune area.
Right.
But at the same time, I'm guessing that the construction control line is probably in the dunes. because that's where they calculate their zoning performances. So if they were to give up, land all the way to the historical seawall, which was, I guess, part of the seaquarium at that time.
Aquatarium, yeah.
Aquatarium. Then you would have to look at, where their construction control line is, because that was put in place where that's how all the density and setbacks and things like that were put into place. But I don't know how an easement would affect that.
Yeah.
I mean, but, I get it. But there is an ECL there, for sure.
Can you say one thing for I'm sorry, thank you.
But I mean, seems like it should be something that could be negotiated.
Yeah.
But I think it's something that, my thought is that, and kind of like to the mayor's point, working on all fronts. Pressing on the county, pressing on the Army Corps, pressing through politicians, and then, Silver Sands is right here. There are citizens, our residents. We can talk to them.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
that dialogue should probably begin.
I mean, it seems like if they're not losing anything, because I know they're real protective about the privacy of their area.
Property, yeah.
There should be a way to do it.
So I provided both Mr. Bishop and Ms. Levy's name, number, contact, et cetera, to the president, and told him, these are the people you should start with, so that you can understand it better, because it's not a city discussion. I mean, obviously, the city wants to see this thing done. But again, we got to remember, even if we get over that hurdle and get them comfortable, we still got the whole Treasure Island situation.
Which confuses me
But
as
the
to
Army
why
Corps
that
said
should
that
be
they
part
would
of it.
they would separate
Yeah.
the contract. They
Yeah.
said they would do it.
Yeah.
But for Silver Sands, they would separate it, and it would be getting going.
We have that officially?
It's in emails.
They did that and then
Yeah.
they reversed their position.
Right. That was the email that we got just before the commission meeting, like a week before, which sounded all like good news.
Right. So they reversed it.
Yes, that's what
Right.
Ms. Levy basically, unless they reverse it again, and I don't
Yeah.
know if they have or not, but
I don't think.
what Ms. Levy said is that they had to reverse exactly what Commissioner Marron is saying that they were going to do.
Yep. Right.
I think we finished
Next
that.
audience comment? I think we finished that
William
discussion.
Lawson.
Let's get one at the end.
I think you're right.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is William Lawson, 5407 Leilani Drive. I'm speaking as an individual here tonight. Quick follow-up on conversations that I had 2 weeks ago where we talked about the demonstrable increase in crime as reported by the Sheriff's Office that may be at least temporarily related to the beginning of the free Sunrunner service. I offered that same testimony to the PSTA Board of Directors the next day, which was generally well received, although the folks on the board also requested that we look at the comparison between St. Pete Beach crime increase and Treasure Island crime increase, which, as you can see here from my fellow residents, we have seen a 36% year-over-year increase in reported crime, according to the sheriff, while Treasure Island has enjoyed a mere 7% increase. So while, yes, COVID's over, people are coming back to the beach, we are special. I just wanted to briefly follow up because, to their credit, the PSDA has taken some steps, and I was invited to a meeting to review some changes that they have made with their policies and policing of the Sunrunner in coordination with the Sheriff's Office, which is extraordinary work and likely unsustainable work over the long term, but they feel has made a tremendous difference in reducing the number of people abusing this free service. My concern, however, is that at the end of that meeting, they were very clear that while there is the idea that we might begin charging for the Sunrunner at the end of October, that will require additional board action to do so, and that there's an active conversation amongst the leadership and St. Petersburg politicians where they want to continue to keep the Sunrunner free forever. I realize that many of the people that I speak with as residents, we think that having a free bus service is not a sustainable or desirable situation, but that I can't drive to my home for free effectively. I've got to pay either once to my Sun Pass, or I have to pay tolls to go over the Bayway at least. So it makes sense that we could at least have that degree of filtration involved to ensure that people are using this service appropriately. And I would simply ask our representatives and my fellow citizens, if you have concerns about this issue, make this known to the PSTA, and please let people know that a free Sun Runner, while we appreciate the additional policing and the work that they're doing with the Sheriff's Department, a free Sun Runner with extraordinary work to police it is not a sustainable solution for our town. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Next, we have item 4, consent items. Do I have a motion?
I'll move for approval.
Second.
City Clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
Commissioner Marone,
Yes.
Commissioner Grouse,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Grill,
Yes.
Commissioner Frislowski.
Yes.
Mayor Petrilla,
Yes.
motion carries.
Next, we have item 5A, Florida League of Cities voting delegate designation.
So we have Vice Mayor Grill, Mayor Petrilla, and Commissioner Frislowski attending the Florida League of Cities conference this week, and I just needed one of you three to be designated for the voting delegate to represent the city during the conference, please.
Who is our representative on Florida League of Cities?
Vice Mayor Grill.
I will make a motion to designate Vice Mayor Grill as a voting delegate for the city of St. Pete Beach at the Florida League of Cities annual conference in August.
Second the motion.
City Clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
Commissioner Grouse,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Grill,
Yes.
Commissioner Frislowski.
Yes.
Commissioner Marone.
Yes.
Mayor Petrilla,
Yes.
motion carries.
Next, we have action item 5B, Fire Pension Board of Trustee appointment.
The vacancy to the Fire Pension Board of Trustees is a commission-appointed position. Mr. Tholen is present. I do not know if Susan is present, but I did ask them, both of them, to attend tonight in case you had questions. Mr. Tholen is here.
So we have 3 candidates.
Yes, so we had one application after I had published the agenda, which I forwarded to all of you.
We can hear from Mr. Tholen. I just find it difficult to evaluate candidates when they haven't presented or given us material with an opportunity to review it and understand it and evaluate it. And I know we've run into this,
Yes,
we can only
Mr.
ask.
Tholen did fill out the city's form. As you can see, I have worked on updating it, just so you all are aware. It is with legal for review. So it is a little bit more of a packet and not just a one-pager, but for now, that is what the city has, so that's what I provided him. The deputy city clerk and I followed up with him and just asked him for some brief information on what kind of financial background, because I know that's typically what you all ask, but that's just what we have normally been doing, so I just followed the standard questions.
When is the updated package supposed to be ready?
Legal is to provide comments. I sent it to them 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
And when is the next meeting of the pension board?
Sorry, I don't handle those meetings.
No, yeah, I'm sorry.
I believe
But
it's
I know they had a meeting about 2 weeks ago.
Yes, it's
So
it's
quarterly.
I'm pretty
So
confident
there's
it's
time if you,
November.
Yeah.
I think that's where I was going. Maybe
Yes,
we could
yes,
get
yep.
some time, and even without, at least if the new procedures are ready, at least we can have a chance to talk to the people, as we have in the past, have them come to the podium, provide us a resume and any other pertinent information in advance.
So if you do want to require a resume, whether it's for just the pension related or all board appointees, board appointees are individuals, but the pension ones are a little different as it's a collective vote, right? So I am familiar. I used to be a pension board administrator from where I came from, so I had to do these types of things regularly, and that was a requirement, was a resume. So I can update the form that I had submitted for legal review, and specifically in the pension boxes where they would check, I can put that in as a requirement if that is the wish of the commission.
And I would say at least information on them. I don't know that we have to request a resume, but even something that's an email that says, this is my background and this is my profession, or this is why I'm doing it. It's very difficult to look at ones that are just a check box and you really know their address and that's it. There was one of them that did provide more information. I didn't bring that with me because I thought that was going to be up here, but I think we want to make it easy for people. So, if they don't have a resume ready to go, if it's easier for them to just write us a letter, and say, hey, I'm a CPA or I'm whoever, so
Yeah.
I wouldn't say resume, but just information.
Relevant.
Resume or relevant information, yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely something I can add to, and I can share with you all the updated form, so you can take a look at it as well. But I could put that as one of the requirements for pension.
Now, I would say it's great that we have 3 people that are applying. I mean, that's a really good thing.
Yeah.
So.
And maybe we put this out at a date in a month's time, if that gives it enough time for the people to provide the information for us to digest it and before they have their next meeting.
Yes.
Shall we hear from him since he's already here, rather than asking him to come back
Yes,
again?
sure.
I mean,
Yes.
Maybe
He's
up
already
to come
taken
here, so yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and he's sat through the presentations, guys. He deserves to come and stand. Mr. Solon, would you like to come introduce yourself?
Good evening. If you please state your name and address for the record.
Jim Tholen, 3820 Gulf Boulevard,
Thank you, sir.
St. Pete's Beach. I'll just ask you, what would you like to know?
Give us an idea
Briefly.
of your background, just and why you want this illustrious position.
Graduate from Indiana University, marketing degree, 6 years in the Marine Corps. I've had 3 different businesses that I've owned through my business background or life. When I moved here 6 years ago, I volunteered for the Coast Guard Auxiliary, and in 5 years I became the commander of the St. Pete's Beach Flotilla. And I'm looking for something to do, so that's why I'm volunteering for this position. As far as my qualifications, I have had extensive investment of my own investments as far as self-directed IRAs and that kind of thing. I still have some of my investments under my own leadership, but I also partnered up with Raymond James and they do most of it. But I am interested in what goes on with the board as far as it looks like it's mostly financial oriented of what we would be doing. So that's kind of right down my alley.
Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming out.
Thank you. Okay, we'll defer item 5B. Next, we have item 5C, the Paso Girl Seawall Rehabilitation.
Yeah, Mike Clark is here, but this is basically his recommendation for award to Tampa Bay Marine to do the rehabilitation of Paso Grill Seawall and 17th Avenue Seawall. This has gone through a bidding process. We only got one bidder, but staff and other from both procurement and public works feels that the company, even though it's only one company that bid it, has the qualifications or skills to be able to do the work. And we are asking for your approval on this. The quote that we got is a little bit higher than what we had originally budgeted. So we are pulling some funds from 2 other projects that have it. If the First Avenue Jetty has a balance of 86,000 that we can transfer to this project,
See if it makes any sense.
and the balance for this work will come out of the road resurfacing project that will be reallocated to that next year. And we'll be happy to answer any questions that anybody has on this.
I just had one quick question. I didn't find anything in the quote, but does the scope of that work include removing all the old concrete pilings that are in front of the seawalls in those areas?
No, does not.
Does not?
No.
So those will still be there?
Those will still be there.
How can we get rid of those? They kind of like are a bit of an eyesore, and I don't know if they would be a safety issue, but how much extra would it cost to get those?
We can get a quote to
I mean,
to remove those, and I don't know if what approvals will be needed, but we can check on that as well.
I mean, while the equipment's there, it doesn't seem like it would be that big of a deal to yank all those out of there, and I think it would just clean that area up a lot.
Okay.
The only thing I had is that, and I just mentioned it to the city attorney, the liquidated damages provision of this contract could be a little clearer and tighter. We've just recently been confronted with a liquidated damages provision in a contract. I want to make sure it's tight and enforceable. It probably is, it's not Scrivener's error. I think it's just something that needs a little bit of cleaning up because it calls for an alternative, $500 a day. It says either. Work is embraced by this contract is not completed on or before the date set for completion or any extension thereof. The actual damages for the delay will be impossible to determine, and in lieu thereof, the contractor shall pay to the city fixed, agreed, and liquidated damages in the amount of either $500 per day for each calendar day of delaying until the work is satisfactorily complete. Either what? Either $500 or what?
So if I may, Mayor.
Please.
So this is part of the solicitation. The liquidated damages clause that you're reading is part of the solicitation packet that goes out, right, which also includes a sample agreement. I actually spoke to John Taylor today. Didn't get a chance to speak to Andrew and Alex yet, but we were actually going to request the legal department to approve the motion with any changes legal seems sufficient, because he actually just sent me the agreement this week, and I haven't finalized the actual terms of the agreement itself. But the document that you're reading will be an exhibit to the agreement, but there's conflicting language, so I'll make sure that it's buttoned up in the agreement itself. So any motion today, if you could just allow legal to add any clauses it deems sufficient, we'd appreciate that.
In the agreement, which will have a superseding language to it. Right. I'm good with that.
I'm fine with that. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I had a couple of comments. First, just point out, and the city manager talked about it, we are pulling in money from a project, the resurfacing project, that's pushed out to next year. So we're pulling in money and leaving a gap for next year that we're going to have to plug.
That's for a project that already at the last budget meeting didn't have sufficient funds and required an influx of almost $2 million?
No, this is a different project. This is not Gulfwinds. This is Gulfway.
Okay. And that one has sufficient funds?
We will have to reallocate funds.
Have to supplement
make
that.
work, right?
Yeah.
I mean, right now we have a real life project that is ready to go. And we know that the Gulfway resurfacing is not going to happen this year because we haven't gone out to bid yet. So it's the reality of the costs, or the construction costs that we're dealing with these days.
So that's first. Second, again, it's disappointing to see that we only have one firm bidding. We have a $2.8 million project to do a seawall, we only got one bid. I mean, Mr. Taylor, who, by the way, Mr. Taylor's our procurement manager, said that's what we got. The references, if you read the references and the reference projects, first off, it's a 20-person firm. So and 2 of the references are of this size. They did one project that was for 13 million and change, but with one project was about the same amount, 2.2, 2.3 if I remember. This is 2.8. So if it's a 20-person firm, I think we're looking at a lot of subcontracting in order to get the work done.
Yeah.
So
Because they clarified that to us.
okay, just I'll throw it out all at once, and then we can have a discussion.
Okay.
And City Manager, these are things that you and I had discussed, and I'm sure Mike's prepared to talk about them. I think also looking at the, what do we call them? On page 113 in the packet, there's some bid tabulations, which it's not clear to me what these are. They don't have a title, but more importantly, so 113 and 114 look the same. The dates on these 113 to 116, all these spreadsheets in the top right are dated, all these worksheets are dated prior to the date that we let the bid out. So I don't understand how we have a bid tabulation worksheet from May 24th, March 9th. So if we could clarify that, and I'm really just, are we sure this company can do the project? Thank you.
Mr. Clark?
Mike Clark, Public Works Director. I'll try to give this a shot here. Let me kind of address the subcontracting issue and 20 people in the firm first. This is a seawall. It's a long one. It's got some sidewalks attached to it. It is not necessarily very complicated or difficult work for a firm that does this for a living. 20 people, not bad, because there's only one crane operator, there's one crane director, there's one guy that drives a barge, there's another guy that drives a boat. I mean, you don't need a lot of people to work the equipment necessary to perform this work. There's form work and things of that nature. They do have 3 subcontractors identified: survey, injection for grout injections, and another small
Geotech, I think.
Geotechnical work. So those are all very minor aspects of the project. The bulk of this is bringing in a crane, framing up the seawall in front of the seawall, grouting the interstitial space between the 2 of them, and then fixing the sidewalk and putting the cap back on top of it. I do not have concerns that this firm cannot perform this work. I took a look at their previous work. So I just think that they bid well as the only bidder. That is an indication of how much work is going on around the region. Other folks are busy. We can't speculate correctly or not as to why other people didn't bid. I don't think going back out to bid would really necessarily get us anything better or any more quantity. The people that put their packages in, they know what their schedule is for the year. This firm was looking for work. They had room in their schedule to do it. They have the capability to do it. They bid well. They bid completely. They bid responsibly. I don't find any reasons to disqualify them, and I think we can do very well. Let's see. Did that address all of your concerns, Commissioner Grill?
The spreadsheets, the bid tabulation.
So pages 113 is the 17th Avenue, according to my. Is that correct? Or am I looking? Is my bid package different than yours? Yeah, I printed the whole thing out, but I guess
It looks to me like 113 and 114 are the same, but if you add either 113 or 114 to 115, it looks like that's the total bid.
But is that a bid document, or whose document is that?
This should be the, Matthew, the RFP. We put the bid tab in the request for bids. and they should fill the bid tab out precisely as we put it out there. I don't have the RFP with me, I just have the contract.
So is that our form with the quantities in it, and then they fill out the prices?
That is correct. The bid tab was actually produced by the design firm for the project, and lines up with the items of work that are discernible on both of the projects, 17th Avenue and Pat's Grill seawall.
And then they just fill out the unit price, the quantity, and the total price?
That's correct, yes. So the paid bid item numbers, they're all generated by us. The descriptions are generated by our AE firm, and the units, lump sum, cubic yards, pounds, or whatever the tabulation is. And then the contractors, the bidders, get to fill out the variable sections.
And they're dated before we let out the RFP. So we really need to get, I mean, this isn't the first time we've had this discussion. The documents that go in these packages need to be clear. Who prepared them, who submitted them, and what they represent.
Commissioner Grill, these are submitted as part of a signed contract proposal by the contractor.
Well,
these are his numbers.
Mr. Clark, for
his
someone who
submittal.
receives this about 72 hours ago, it's very difficult to decipher what these are. These are they need to speak for themselves. I've had this discussion with the city manager. They should have titles, who prepared it, so that it's clear. It's clear for everybody. And why they're dated before the date of the RFP. Okay, so now we're saying this is when we prepared the format. That's great. So let's move on. Can you tell me, we had a discussion, we have 10 palm trees? I think there's palm trees in here.
Yes. There are palm trees at the city-owned end of the street ends. They're going to get ripped out because the sidewalk is going to be disturbed, and the wall itself is coming out.
Okay, we never had that discussion. That was never mentioned. Thank you.
I did not realize that you did not have enough time to review this to your satisfaction. I'm perfectly happy to punt this for a cycle. The seawall's not going anyplace, and it's not going to fall down next week. So if you all would like more time to review this, and I can get back to you certainly on why the dates don't line up, I'd be very happy to do that. And I don't see any harm in providing additional time and some better clarification for you. Be happy to do that.
I mean, just to Commissioner Grill's point, that it's not accusing you of anything. It's just simply saying we've had almost every commission meeting now for the last 5 or 6 commission meetings. There's $1 off here. There's a date wrong here. We're making a decision here for $2.8 million. I think the very least that whoever prepared this document is make sure that the right date's on it. You know, so I mean, it's a huge number that we're asked to make a decision on, and maybe for large numbers like this, maybe we do get more than a couple days' notice, so that, you know, it's 132 pages of stuff to read, single-spaced. You know, I'm not sure that's a reasonable amount of time.
No, Your Honor, I absolutely understand. You've got so you have some more big projects coming your way soon. So this is great feedback for Public Works and the legal and procurement team. I'm perfectly happy to go back and give this thing a little bit, get a scrub and get the answer to the dates. That's a very good question. This project is not going to live and die on tonight.
No, it's okay. We appreciate that.
If you all would, I mean, I really, I'm very happy to go back and put a little bit more due diligence into this, and basically apologize for flashing this before you without enough time to digest it and give us feedback.
I think you were right. The forms are prepared by the design firm with the quantities. And
the forms are in the RF.
The date was probably dated when whoever prepared that form.
Right.
And they put a date on it.
The dates, that's the contractor's stuff. The bid form itself is designed by the architect engineer, reviewed by us. For example, the palm trees. Had not the AE caught the palm trees, we probably would have caught the palm trees. Because it doesn't really, you know, we're rebuilding a seawall. What the heck are the palm trees all about? That's a great question.
I would like to, though, if we're going to delay this, this is the only bidder.
That is correct.
If the is there a requirement for them to hold their bid number for a certain amount of days? Because if we pass
Yes.
that, they can walk away.
I believe it.
So I think, and that could be very dangerous.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because
I
I
think
tell
the
you right
bids are-
now,
I think the bids are held for a period of time specified in the request for bid, 90 days?
but we don't want to pass that day,
No, we
is
don't
my
wanna lose the
point,
bid.
because they could walk away.
Or increase.
Generally speaking, it's 90 days.
But when does that, what was
Well,
the,
in this
90 days of,
specifically, they're the only bidder. We haven't issued a notice of intent to award. That's what's in front of you today. So technically, we're still in the bid process legally, right? We haven't selected a vendor, even though we only had one.
yeah, but at least in my business, it's 90 days from a day when they submitted the bid. And when did they submit the bid?
It's the 22nd of July.
Which was July 11th.
Or 11th.
Okay.
Which was
Okay.
the bid due date was July 11th.
Okay, so they're required,
So
okay.
We're within 30
I
days.
just know there's a lot of pressure on contractors, and they have subcontracted a lot of things. So even though if they say, we'd like to hold our number, their subs could say, nope, I'm out of here.
I understand.
I got other opportunities. So I just want to make sure that we don't hastily pass up this and then find ourselves in a position now where we have to bid it again and get a higher price and maybe no bidders.
Yeah, luckily I've never dealt with a situation like that.
Yeah.
With a proposer, but I mean, it's only been 30 days.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where the agreement hasn't even been finalized,
Yeah.
so I don't really see any harm.
I'm okay as long as I felt a little bit better with that date. If it was July 11th and we're not even close to the 90 days, I'm okay.
I have dealt with contracts where the bid dates and holding the prices and everything else became tight and a point of concern. And it's not out of bounds for us to ask the contractor if he's willing to hold for another 30 days if it comes to that.
What I would like is, while Mr. Clark is here, that if we have any information that we need from him, that we ask him to get all of it now so that he's not coming back at the next meeting and giving it to us, and then we say, what about this or what about that? We'd like to close this. I think it's best we close it down one way or the other at the next meeting.
Yeah, and
So
providing you these documents, these voluminous documents, a little bit more than 3 days in advance, I think certainly is a goal that we on the staff are going to internalize that.
Thank you. I did have a question regarding the, not for you.
Okay.
I did have a question regarding the procurement process. I find it challenging to make such a huge award without having more than one, and I understand the circumstances. So I have more questions about what's our procurement process look like. For example, in a situation like this, do we just post it and hope we get bids? Or is our procurement manager getting on the phone and saying, XYZ Seawall Company, we have a bid here, we have an RFP, here's where you can find it, take a look at it? What's the process?
We will never call anybody specifically to ask for a bid. That would be highly inappropriate for us to be doing that, because then we could be accused of calling our friends, right? So what we do is we use a service that people sign off, and we post through that service where all of the information gets blasted out to anybody who's, and most construction companies are part of that service, so they all get notice. And the notice will basically say, Sirius and Pete Beach has posted a seawall project, with bids due X date. Click here to get more details and to get the entire document. So that's the general services that most cities use, and it reaches hundreds, if not thousands, of people on the regular basis. But no, we'll never really approach anybody directly.
That's pretty standard in the industry too, but
Yeah,
I would expect also, I can't remember what engineer engineered this, but they have relationships, typically contractors would be, like we have contractors call us up all the time saying, hey, what do you got coming up? And again, we don't have any favorites, but we know a lot of people. And so I would expect that to have happened again by this engineering company.
But not through us.
Oh, right. That just through the networking of information, but
It
there's.
just seems like a nice project.
Yeah.
Nice run of seawall.
But
And
It's a strange situation. You know, we're sort of a victim of our own success here in the Tampa Bay area, and Florida at large, but Tampa Bay area, there's so many things going on that, and costs are going up just ridiculously. It was like construction costs. I'm not so much involved in this kind of marine stuff, but it relates to that too. But we saw prices increase 20% in 2020, 20% in 21, and 10% in 2022. That's 50% compounded for construction. You know, and it has a lot of, as you know, all the Vinnick stuff that was going on, and you know, Water Street, and all the things that are going on everywhere.
These cost estimates are probably at least 2 years old.
Yeah.
From when, you know.
So it's a challenge right now for all owners, cities, counties, private companies. Everybody's dealing with this stuff.
All right, any audience comments? Thank you. Let's move on to action.
We'll defer this item to the 822 agenda.
Yeah. Okay. Action item 5D, the Duke Energy streetlights.
Yes, so as I think we had mentioned before, that Duke Energy decided that they were going to do electrical undergrounding along Gulfwinds Drive, and as a result of that, we worked with Duke Energy to get us a quote to modify the lighting system on Gulfwinds Drive, and they had given us a quote to install 151 12-foot tall amber Sunnyvale streetlights in the area. The cost for this work is $305,000 as a one-time cost. We could also pay this on a monthly incremental cost, but we're recommending that we just do, you know, a one-time payment for this of the 305. There is money allocated in this year for under the CIP for electrical utility conversion projects, and this is close enough to that kind of a project that I think is a good use of the money, and we don't have any other alternative uses for those funds at this point. So the work will be sorry. Will be done concurrently as we do the Gulfwinds project. On the other side, we just heard word that today that Duke Energy plans to start their undergrounding project next week. So if you see trucks in your neighborhood, is that they're doing the Gulfwinds undergrounding project. Now, what
Gulfwinds Drive.
Huh?
So they're going to underground. They want to start next week.
Undergrounding next week on Gulfwinds Drive. Now, what they're going to do is basically going to take all of the major power and put it in conduits and everything else, and then the power for the lights we will put in as part of our project, and then they'll come in and install the new lights.
So it'll be separate conduit just for the lights?
Yes, just for the street lights. It will be a separate conduit that they will do. Right.
And those are in the rights of way on the east and west sides of the street?
Our lights, yes.
The ones that they're going to start on the grounding?
Yeah, they're using the soil areas on the right of way, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Are these the same type of lights that were installed on 55th?
No, they're the same as what we've done in Paso Grill. The ones that are face down.
Yeah.
So they don't shed light everywhere.
It was, I think I got a few comments from the residents on 55th that the color of the lights is this yellowish.
Amber, yes.
Yeah, so I saw that in here. And so is that?
Prior to your arrival on the desk, there was a lot of discussion as to whether we're going to go with amber or with white. We even posted some samples up here on 73rd. Majority of the people chose amber, and what we didn't want to have is a checkerboard approach, some ambers and some white. So yes, the decision was to go with amber, and that's what's being deployed, citywide. I believe that they're just finishing up in your neighborhood, ward, and then they're going to be moving to Pina del Mar probably in a couple of weeks to start doing the amber lights there. So, yeah. So that's new.
We did them in...
District 1 is...
Yeah, I think they're done most of District 1, right?
Most of District 1, yeah.
Yeah.
And those are all the amber lights?
Correct.
Yeah.
Haven't
Was
had
there
any
negative
complaints.
comments about that?
It was not positive.
Yeah. Is that all up and down 55th right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll tell you, I am surprised as to how very little negative comments we have gotten on the amber lights, because I did an LED project in my prior job, and we got a lot of negative comments because of the change. Because whatever, even if you do, we didn't go amber, we went white LED lights. But the white LED light is a more concentrated light, so the spillover is a lot less into the street and into the yards, and people felt less safe because they couldn't see the yards as they were walking. If you think about it, when you see who's in the yard, and you feel comfortable that you walk in an environment, but it changed the environment, and so every time that you go through some changes like that is.
Now, these lights are similar to the ones that were put on Passive Grill Way.
Right.
Is it the same color? Are those amber lights in Passive Grill Way?
No, I think those are white.
Depends on how far down you go.
Oh, true. Far south is.
These were lower.
Okay,
These were...
the northern part is white, and then it
Correct.
changes to amber?
Correct.
Okay.
I think these were 12 feet? Or how,
These are 12 feet.
so that they replaced the big, tall, ugly
Yeah.
concrete poles.
This is expensive, but it's something that I think we need to do since it's all being undergrounded.
Right. And it gives I think it gives a more neighborhood feel. It changes as we're changing the road from
Yeah. A highway.
a highway thoroughfare to a more residential neighborhood feel, which is, I mean, it's a residential street, most of it.
I agree.
Any other discussion?
Joe Mulholland signed up to speak, please.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Joe Mulholland, 199 21st Avenue. Hadn't planned on speaking tonight, but I couldn't help but overhear the discussion as it relates to the Paso Grill lights. And I guess the plan is to put them somewhere else in the community. If that's the case, those lights are not very robust. I walk Paso Grill every single morning up until my dog got sick a week or so ago, in all weather conditions, and those lights sometimes are dangerous. I mean, I don't know if you have an inventory how many of them have fallen off, but I've seen a number of them after storms either just hanging loose or literally on the ground, that if they had hit somebody, they would have killed them. So I just wanted to bring that up. If you're looking at putting the exact same lights somewhere else, that's something to consider. I'd even thought about calling in once or twice when I'd noticed that, but didn't know who to call and whether anybody would listen to me anyway. But I thought this might be an opportunity to at least mention that. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Do we know if these are the same type of, are these the old lights or the new lights, or?
Yeah, I'm not sure which ones.
There's
Mike,
so
do you know
many
which ones?
lights we've had changed out in
Yeah.
Paso Grill. We've had them put in and then changed out within months sometimes.
Yeah.
We had the big, tall crane lights. We had the 17-foot ones that are coming down now that we're shining into people's homes. We have the low lights that are amber right now, which to your point, they aren't bright, but the reason we have them in that area is because the neighbors were complaining that lights were shining right in their house.
Yeah.
So in that area, we dimmed it down, yeah.
Yeah, the box.
And these lights do have the light posts have a shelf life, regardless of what they'll tell us about it, the weathering of these lights. They don't last forever, and those crane ones were the ones that were breaking in the storms.
The lights on Gulf Way on the beach side are the same style, but they're also 20-plus years old. They're the ones that the actual light fixture that sits onto the bracket itself after so much salt exposure has finally warped off, and then the fixture is dangling by the electrical wires. We're very keen on making sure that we capture that as fast as we possibly can, and Duke Energy does replace those as part of the cost of our lighting program. Very shortly, within the next not too distant future, all of the lights on Gulf Way will be replaced. As they've aged out, and so there's Duke Energy is going to replace all of those lights. And to Commissioner Marone's point, everything has an age, and so when you hit it, it's time to replace it. And so those lights, it's their time.
But the lights that we're talking about here are similar to the ones on Paso Grill Way?
Yes, the same fixture.
And it's the same exact fixture, right? Because those are Duke lights and these are Duke lights?
Yes.
Okay. And Duke's responsible for them, right? I mean, we're basically putting some capital costs into it and then releasing it?
What happens with Duke is that what we pay right now is the first-time cost.
Right.
Then we pay a regular maintenance fee for it, which includes the next replacement of it.
Okay.
So that's what he's saying. What you're getting right now in Gulfway are part of that cycle already, and then we'll continue to change them as they decay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Do we have a motion?
Yeah, excuse me, I move to authorize an agreement with Duke Energy in the amount of $305,437.20 to install 151 12-foot tall amber streetlights on Gulf Winds Drive, and a design work order change with Kimley Horn for $18,234.20 to modify the Gulf Winds Drive construction plans.
Second.
City Clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
Vice Mayor Grill?
Yes.
Commissioner Frizlowski?
Yes.
Commissioner Marone?
Yes.
Commissioner Grouse?
Yes.
Mayor Petrilla?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next, we have item 5E, an action item for the sheriff's contract renewal.
Yes, this is the standard contract renewal, plus we have added a contingency allocation of $250,000 to the contract to have the ability to have services a la carte that will be managed in cooperation in the sheriff's office and our staff to address things as needed on the either on the beach or any other area where we do feel that resources need to be allocated for responding to, crimes or safety issues that people are concerned about.
So does this contract satisfy the model that the sheriff was talking about at our town hall that he thought we needed to revert back to?
Well, the model that he was talking about was allocating $50,000 a year towards beach patrol. That got switched 2 years ago by going from $50,000 a year to a full-time community police officer. That enhanced we went from 600 hours a year to about 2,000 hours a year. But it basically gave us a full-time person as opposed to hourly individual people. So this is now basically 5 times more than what we used to have before, because the allocation before was $50,000 a year. So it's not that we reduce service; we actually increase service in terms of hours. Hopefully, this will give them enough resources to address all the hot areas on the beach, because by adding $250,000 each hour is basically $60 an hour, so you're adding about 4,000 hours of service to the beach.
That we can customize to some
We can
degree.
customize as we need. So it could be, certain times of day. It could be certain, weekends. It could be to address the homeless issues that have been going on. Effective October 1, this money will be available for any of those things.
And this is effective October 1st, correct?
This contract is effective October 1st, correct?
So the item that I added for discussion, it doesn't relate to the contract, so maybe we can discuss it after we finish with the contract.
Yeah, sure. I thought that would.
Yeah, it's,
Okay.
So we need a motion to approve the contract then.
So have we increased, have we decreased funding and/or headcount? I mean, there's, I think, uneasiness and confusion in the community based on the sheriff's comments. And we had in the last meeting a resident who accused us of defunding the police. We're spending $3 million and change this year in fiscal year '23, over $3 million. I mean, haven't been up here on this commission forever, but I never remember anybody taking a vote saying we're going to cut back on this. So in '24, is it an increase, a decrease compared to previous years? And then you did explain about the extra $250 for us to decide how to deploy that.
Right. So we have been increasing the amount of hours and budget for police every year. Okay. The comment that he was making was specifically to the overtime hours that were available, that he felt that it will offer flexibility. That was 2 years ago replaced with a full-time additional community police officer. And the logic at the time was the people that were coming in to do the overtime didn't know the city's rules. Didn't know. Remember that somebody complained about it? Do they know that they cannot do barbecue on the beach? Do they know that dogs on the beach is a priority? Do they know that that loud music is a concern? So the idea was, well, if we get a community police officer, then they will know what the city's priorities are, what the city's codes are, and it will be much more effective in being able to implement those. So that's where that change happened. It went from, about 500-600 hours a year to about 2,000 hours a year, which is a full-time person. Now we're basically putting more money into the overtime flexible model, and basically providing 5 times the amount of resources that we had before. So
yeah, I think
it should be able to make it a significant change in the presence that's up there.
I think what he's saying is that, if you guys remember it, something about that community police officer couldn't effectuate the designs and the implementation of that position because that officer was constantly being called away because they only have 3 officers from the end of Paso Grill to Treasure Island. So we were so thinly spread, we were always pulling that officer out to handle everything else, and so it really became ineffective.
And that was really not the intent of that community police officer, because we have allocated 2 of them on the weekend to be on the beach. So 2 of them work Saturday, 2 of them work Sunday.
That was the intent.
I was primarily, and it's a little bit also had to do with the engagement and presence of the individuals that you hire, right? And we used to have 2 people that were very proactive on beach items, and everybody knew them. Everybody knew that they were there all the time, and so there's been a little bit of change in the priorities as to how they got redeployed away from the beach.
So are we losing one of those community officers?
No, we're maintaining the 3.
We still are maintaining 3.
We're maintaining the 3
and adding
250.
Right. And we're paying a little bit extra just because costs go up over time.
Sure.
So it's already increasing, and then we agreed to increase that 250,000.
And we're talking about those hourly officers. Hey, we don't need them on, maybe Monday afternoon. We really need them on Thursday night, and we need them on, so we have that flexibility.
Right.
Yeah. And there's always been some flexibility built into this whole contract. That was really the reason why the commission, I was not on the commission when they changed from the police department to the sheriff, but that was a big issue, was that, we had our own police department. If you wanted more personnel, you either paid overtime, which was costly, or you brought more on. Now you're hiring more people, and the sheriff is sort of an a la carte type of a thing. During spring break, we can get more of them on during certain times, certain hours we can get more of them on. So I think this should help. And then I guess we just have to let them know our priorities. If we have certain issues, we got to make sure that they're staying on top of it, because it does change. I think we've all seen it, depending on which personnel are assigned.
They are the police professionals, so we'll tell them what our priorities are, and we'll put the right number of people in the right number of places.
What I would like is more engagement with him on the sheriff on a quarterly basis at least. So he comes before the commission and gives us kind of a quarterly report. This is what we're seeing. These are the trends we're seeing. This is where your coverage is. This is where your coverage needs to be. I think we need to be I would like us to be a little bit more engaged, and him to be a little more engaged with us on a quarterly basis.
I'd like that idea, to have a representative come and just kind of give us a quick report, and then there could be some discussion. And I think the public would like to see that too, though.
Because we used to get a report, and I haven't seen it for quite some time, a pretty comprehensive.
We used to get
quarterly with trends,
Stats.
just that, all the stats.
Yeah.
So that we can see if we're spending this extra money, or where is it going? What are we getting for that?
I can't promise I'm going to get you the sheriff every quarter.
No.
We think you need a sheriff or a representative.
Right. A captain or...
Captain Lanahan or somebody.
Actually, that's good.
Somebody who's prepared that can say, oh, I see what you're saying, and I know your guys, and I know your model, and this is what we'll do, instead of, well, I'll look into it. I want a quarterly, I'll look into it. So we just have to let them know to be prepared to give us the full 411 report, and then have some discussion with us about trends.
Yeah, I think it's important on the trends, and to get the perspective from the sheriff's office on what causation.
Right.
I mean, there's statistics.
Like the Sunrunner.
Well,
is there anything we can do about it?
And what they see, and what can we do as a city to help?
Well, you put in a lot of money into this, so you got to be able to manage the expectations as to what the results are from the additional money, right? So,
City Manager, just one last thing on the contract, and I'm assuming we worked out the numbers, because some of the numbers didn't match in Clause 17 to the summary. But I was asked about Clause 14, and it's just a general question. Fines and forfeitures, rendered in any court as a result of charges will be distributed according to general law and the rules of the court. Do you happen to know what, so for example, a traffic ticket, that's not a...
That's not a forfeiture. That's not a forfeiture. Forfeitures are, and I haven't seen a check since I've been here. But for example, if there is a routine police stop and they find that the person is on drugs, they search the car and they find $1 million in the car, that becomes a forfeiture. If there is a police raid on somebody's house and they are printing, they're laundering money and they find cash or equivalents of that, that becomes a forfeiture. That goes through the process, and there is a court that will adjudicate the use of the money based on who was the jurisdiction that had the most control over the raid. So the judge will say, well, it was sheriff's office working in St. Pete Beach, so it should be split this way.
In traffic violations?
No, traffic violations are paid through the system. We do get a percentage of the actual traffic violations. Again, that gets split, but we do get that. But we're not talking big money. We're talking, I would say, $30,000, $40,000 a year on traffic violations. But,
okay.
Yeah, we do get some.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, but forfeiture is a whole different animal.
Okay. And just, as I said, 17, if we could just double check Clause 17 to the summary, the numbers didn't seem to jive.
Yeah, okay.
My only other comment on this contract was related to Marine Patrol services. It doesn't really specify exactly, and I talked to the city manager about it, because I think in the past we've all talked about having complaints from residents about speeding boaters and other things like that. And I think the thought was that if we found like we needed some of that, maybe some of that 250
we can
could
probably
go
do some
to
enhancements
some
with
extra
that.
patrols, but I guess it's just considered part of right now
Countywide service.
countywide service. But, we got a lot of waterways, and I still hear complaints. It's hard to really supervise it because you have to be there right at the time, but there are a lot of people that just do not obey basic traffic laws, and I got to believe a lot of these boaters know them. I mean, if you're within 200 feet, you're supposed to be going slow speed, minimum wake, and some obey it, but plenty don't. So.
City Clerk, any audience comments? So related to the contract, and that was the question when this takes effect, since it's October 1st. So the sheriff had agreed to post deputies at the county park for 3 weeks, which is, don't let the word get out, but that's at the end of this week. And so when I spoke with him earlier this week, I asked him, well, what's the hard cost, since he's not charging us for it, which we're very, very happy and grateful for. What's the hard cost until this takes effect? Maybe we can look at allocating additional funds to have it. Right now, he has 3 deputies posted for 8-hour shifts. When I spoke with the city manager earlier, we thought maybe we could get away with at least 1 deputy for an 8-hour shift per day for the next few weeks, or for the next 2 months, 2.5 months, until we have the additional allocation built into the contract. And so just want to see, have a conversation about whether the commission would be open to that. The sheriff didn't seem to think that he necessarily felt like we needed a contract amendment to the current contract, but just the commission to agree whether we would allocate the funds for them to do that. It seems like, and if you go to the sheriff's website where they have the active call log, I mean, I was on there 2 days ago, it was 11 o'clock, and they already had 3 calls at the county park.
For what type of problem?
One was a stabbing. So they're serious issues. And so to give you the number is about $10,000 a week.
It's not the number, it's Roar. What's the problem we're trying to address, and what's the root cause of the problem?
Yeah. So the problem is that we have people at the bus stop that are getting off at the bus. We've got reports of people being harassed at Publix, being accosted by people, being chased around the parking lot, the same at the county park. And that was the reason that we had to why the sheriff offered to put that in place in the first place.
So, I mean, we need to do what we need to do to make the city a safe environment. But I think this, to me, looks like a Band-Aid.
It is.
It's the, we've had discussions about the county park, and remember, that bus stop was put in the county park because we didn't want it on city property. So we got this bus, and I'm still not convinced. I mean, we've seen statistics, and which is why I want to hear from the sheriff's office. Causation, it's yes, the bus started on this date, and here's the statistics. Maybe we just have better enforcement. I don't know. I'm not saying I'm not saying the problems don't exist, but we have more crime numbers reported. Was action taken? I mean, there's a number of things that need to be looked at. But it's county property, so why isn't the county taking care of what the county put into our city?
I will tell you from the discussion I had with the sheriff, he is actively petitioning the PSTA to start charging. So he's not looking at just the Band-Aid. We are looking at the cause of the problem, or at least as he perceives it as the cause of the problem. So he's taking steps on that end as well. But that is actually a very good point. If that is county property, then why is the county not?
And didn't we hear from Mr. Lawson earlier during the audience comments?
The county would hire the sheriff's office, which is, they would just have to pay for.
That PSTA is going to take some actions.
Here's the root of the problem. We all know what it is. The sheriff told us.
I don't know what the root of the problem is.
It is the buses. It is the buses and who they're bringing in. And he said, we cannot just pick these people up and drive them somewhere and drop them off. We're not allowed to do that. We can make their lives miserable, is what he said, but we can't trespass them from public property unless they're violating a law. So we can trespass them from private property if the owner's willing to issue a trespass warning, and then they trespass after warning. So he said, we have to basically make their lives miserable, which is, what are you doing here, sir? Where are you going? Or do you need some assistance? But that's all we can do is pester them. They used to not be here, these troublemakers. They're here now. And I've talked to a couple other deputies who've ridden that Sunrunner and said they would not let their wives ride that Sunrunner based on the occupants of those buses. So it is directly related. It's not a correlation, it is a causation. We can see from the time this free bus came into our city and the time that our crime rate went up, they're all at the same time. This is exactly what it is. I can't say that our increased day trippers are not causing trouble either, because they are. But we do have a problem at the county beach is where the buses go. And I've seen them get off the bus. They have no direction. These people have no destination. They wander across the street. They walk around the shopping center. They harass people. They're up to no good. So that is the problem we're dealing with, is this Sunrunner. I heard this gentleman come up here tonight, go to the county meeting. Yeah. They have no intention of slowing this thing down. The city of St. Petersburg is going to come up with the money. It's going to be free for a long time. The question is, do we have to let it out here anymore?
Well, I think it is a good idea for us to keep the sheriff going as at least a short-term solution, so that it doesn't, because it could get worse if we don't deal with it. And I think in the meantime, we probably ought to write to the county and express our concern to the county that the county has allowed the county park to be the stop, and it's causing problems, and we would respectfully request that they work with the sheriff, who has said this is causing some of the issues. I think we ought to also send a letter to the city of St. Petersburg expressing our concerns, and to PSTA. I think we'd send it to all three entities as a body and express our concerns.
Okay, we'll draft something for you.
Yeah, I mean, don't you guys think we would hit up on all three?
Yeah.
Everybody's got to work together here.
And I'm in agreement with paying to increase enforcement. I mean, regardless of, we know what the cause is, but we have to protect our residents.
Well, we don't know what the cost is, because...
No, the cause.
No. Oh, cost. C-O-S.
I don't know what the cost is.
Right.
I know what the cause is.
Yes. I have a meeting on Friday with Captain Liner, who is going to basically bring me up to speed in their efforts, the results of what they have done so far.
Okay.
And the recommendation as to the level of saturation that we need to do starting next week. And it might not be 3 officers throughout the entire day, and the mayor and I spoke about that. Because once you hit a problem hard, you might be able to step back a little bit. You don't want to go to 0, but it might be that instead of 3, it's 2, it's 1, and he's going to give me a recommendation on Friday as to what that is. I think I got the board's concurrence that whatever he recommends will continue something. I will report back on the meeting on the 22nd. This is the level that we see for the next 6 weeks. And, I will give you an exact number at the time, so.
I would also like to understand what Mr. Lawson was referring to about PSTA in the sheriff's office working to improve security on the Sunrunner.
Okay.
That's what he told us.
Okay, we'll follow up on that.
And I didn't attend the meeting, but
Just because we have a week in between now and, actually, yet a week after this week expires before the next commission meeting, can we look at, authorizing, the city manager to talk to the sheriff and get at least 1 deputy for the next 10 weeks until October 1st? Or maybe do 5 weeks, and then the September 11th, we can review and extend for an additional 30 days if we need to?
Sorry, 6 weeks, not 10.
6 weeks.
Yeah, October 1st. Yes, it's okay, it's late. It's 6 weeks.
Yeah, but I would
Should we
agree
hear
with
from
that.
Captain Lannon first?
Well, I'm going to hear from him on Friday. I'll summarize what we come up with. I'll send you the information, but I think what the mayor is saying is that rely on me to have the authority.
We have
to
a
come
week
and
gap of no
keep-
coverage.
On Monday,
There's-
somebody can be there if it was 1, 2, or 3, and then we'll have a more or an in-depth discussion at the meeting on the 22nd to say, okay, this is what we're doing for the next 6 weeks. This is the value of this, and
I agree, it's time for action now.
Yep.
Well, yeah, up to 6 weeks, and we need to, pursue with the county. This is their problem. I mean, they created this. They stuck this on us. Remember how many people we had lined up out the door telling us, don't bring it, don't do it, don't do it.
Right.
Peace.
Okay, do we have a motion on the sheriff's contract, please?
I move to authorize the city manager to execute the interlocal agreement with the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office for law enforcement services from October 1, 2023 through September 30th, 2024, in the amount of $3,208,304.
But I'm sorry, I'm confused because the spreadsheet has a different number and clause 17 has a different number than the summary report. The clause 17 has 3,286,380, as does the spreadsheet, right? And the summary report seems to have a lower number.
yeah, so let's go with 305, 437.80.
So moved.
It's off by 60 cents, but yeah.
I didn't hear what you said.
So as already accept that is for 305, 437.80.
That's the Duke Energy. That's
I'm
not
sorry.
the contract.
Hey, yeah, sure, we'll pay the sheriff.
No.
We'll go for that.
Right.
Yeah, just, it's,
That level is
Yes,
over?
yes.
it's in paragraph 17.
Or I'm looking at it on a spreadsheet, too.
Yeah.
Spreadsheet's $3,286,380.
That's the number.
Is that what?
No, that's the 273,865 is monthly. The 3286380.
Yeah, that's what I was going with,
That's the
that
number,
number.
right.
$3,286,380.
Right, and that's in paragraph 17.
That does agree with 17 also? Okay.
And with that correction, I'd second the motion.
City clerk, please have a roll call.
Commissioner Frislowski,
Yes.
Commissioner Marone,
Yes.
Commissioner Grouse,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Grill,
Yes.
Mayor Petrella.
Yes.
Motion carries.
And then, do we have a motion to authorize the city manager for the remaining 6 weeks? How would we phrase that?
To
Or get an officer at the county park.
work with the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office to determine the appropriate level of police staffing at County Park for the period of August 15 to September 30th.
So moved.
Second.
City clerk, if we'll have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Marone,
Yes.
Commissioner Grouse,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Grill,
Yes.
Commissioner Frislowski.
Yes.
Mayor Petrella.
Yes.
Motion carries.
If we can just have a note to put a discussion item for the next. Next, we have action item 5F, a Corey Avenue street closure.
Matthew, Jennifer, who's going to do that one? Or both of you guys?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And I know the representatives of CABA are here and their attorney, Jane. At the last meeting, they were tasked with submitting the application, making sure that they got the proper approval. All of that's been completed. So it's in front of you today because since it had been 15 months, it was legal's opinion that the commission had to approve the street closure today. Right, and the market will take place on Sunday, is the first market. So there were some questions related to financing and things of that nature. So Jane is here, their attorney, to answer any of those questions and anything else the commission has. But from staff's point of view and legal's, the application's been deemed complete. There were some ADA issues that came up. There was also a hold harmless agreement that CABA just signed and sent today, along with the fire marshal going out before the event to ensure that ADA is met, sidewalks are clear, walkways are clear. So all of that's been taken care of.
So, Assistant City Attorney, maybe you can just give us an update, because I've been contacted by residents, shop owners, people in Corey, who have said to me, why are all these new requirements being put on CABA when TBM didn't have to meet any of them? ADA, I've heard 4 police toilets, ba-dum. Are there new owners' requirements being put on CABA that were not on TBM?
So,
Or is this just
okay,
hearsay?
so when the market was operating in Tampa Bay markets and CABA were working jointly. Okay, so if we can go back to when it was operating that way, there was portalets, there was off-duty sheriff's office, ADA compliance was met, all of the above. Right now, there was a suggestion to up the off-duty sheriff's office, but we had a Zoom meeting, and that was merely a suggestion, not a requirement from the city, right? Because they wanted cars blocking the roads to prevent any vehicles from driving into the Sunday market, along with some officers patrolling. But the portalets have always been a requirement. Now, I can't speak on what was occurring when Tampa Bay Market was running it. It was always supposed to be some kind of temporary fix that kind of went on for too long, in my opinion. But these are not new requirements. And ADA compliance has always been met. There's always been the fire marshal going out to site and taking a site visit prior to the market happening. This happens every Sunday as well. There's always been a site plan. These are all things that have always occurred. Hold harmless is a little bit different, but in legal's opinion, this is something that should go with every permit. And it's part of our permit application moving forward.
And this is a new permit?
Correct. For 4 months.
For how long?
4 months. So in December, I know we move things around for Christmas, probably the second meeting in December. If that's what the commission wants, they'll come in front of you and we'll have a kind of a big overview of how the market's gone. I'm sure public will have some input, and then I guess the commission at that point will decide how to move forward.
Thank you.
No problem.
Did any of the commissioners want to hear from CABA's attorney, or?
I had asked multiple times for financial statements and donations, and where has the money been going? And I've not received. 10 minutes to 9 on the day I'm going to be asked to go vote in about 3 minutes. There's nothing. Again, is another example of data not being provided, being asked for multiple times and not being provided, and then in 3 minutes I'm going to be asked for a vote. I don't know how I'm expected to do that.
Please state your name for the record.
Good evening, Commissioner. My name is Jane Graham. I represent CABA, and I have a little bit of a cold, so my voice is a little odd tonight, so bear with me. As was discussed at the last commission meeting, the issue of financials had been raised, and what the agreement was that there will be financials to be provided over the next 4 months at the December meeting when there is a new vote. Now, as far as the request, I mean, one thing that I will say, I do have information here tonight. I'm glad to speak to some of that, but as has been previously discussed, this type of information is not required of other nonprofit applicants. This is the type of question that goes over and above how others are treated. And so while, you know, CABA has been very patient with the city and wanting to work this through, and I can give you specific information. This really does go over and above as to what is required, as to what is written, as to what is in a street closure permit, and given the background as far as the, I don't know if I would say dispute, but the ongoing tension between CABA and TBM, we would be reluctant to disclose our full books, which would then become a matter of the public record. That said, what I can do is let you know that as far as over the last number of years, I can go through some of the main budgetary expenditures. And that's something that I had mentioned, I had discussed at the previous meeting as well. And so to give some examples, for the 2019 budget, this is before any of this TBM Sunday market and COVID market situation happened and the changes, the income had been, approximately $37,000, with the total projected expenses around the same place. There was $3,000 given to the Tampa Bay Beaches Chamber of Commerce, also about $13,000 given to Tampa Bay Times for things like the Bay Magazine, Times and Tampa Bay print ads, digital and geofencing, brochure inserts. There was a Florida Info Guide expenditure of $2,100. Golf publishing condo unit rental advertisement $1,800. Paradise News $1,250 per year. Aware Magazine $1,200, as well as miscellaneous expenses. These are just a variety of expenditures. I mean, I can go through different years if you do want that. CABA is, as I had previously mentioned and shown at the previous board, when we talk about these advertisements, this is a Corey Avenue advertisement. This is not singling out individual businesses. This is not, some individual profiting off of this. This is advertising Corey Avenue as the heart of downtown. The free ride. These are, advertisements on vans, on local newspapers, Gulfport Gabber. At some point over the years, there had been money expended in video productions. In the last year, something I can give an example of is there had been a Hurricane Ian benefit where $7,100 had actually been donated to Hurricane Ian relief. Now, that's not in the city of St. Pete Beach, but CABA had decided that that was a worthwhile cause. There in 2023, recent, money expended on Google marketing, Facebook ads, Zoom subscriptions, again, Tampa Bay Times, free beach ride. This is the other part of the story, which I would let you know, which I think you would see, is that the funding that CABA had collected, they do get revenue from the craft shows over the year. And so, they do get about $2,500 over the various craft shows. But until what happened with TBM, their main revenue had come from the Sunday market. And over the last number of months, that had not been collected. That's something that, that CABA has been suffering from. And so the balances had been going down because that influx had not been going through. As far as the amounts that CABA had received from the Sunday market, and I don't want to bore you with the specifics, but it ranges because in the winter, it could be, around $3,500 when it's a really busy market to, closer to the summer in May when it's around $2,500. And so this is something that goes through the year. Something that CABA would say as well is that the type of events, I had mentioned, there had been like a turtle event over the years. CABA has partnered with the city. I think, because of COVID and because of its recent issues with TBM, CABA hasn't been holding as many types of events and donations for the city. But, as this is amping up again this fall, I think CABA is looking forward to partnering with the city. Hopefully there will be donations given, for things such as beautification programs for the city, other events benefiting things specifically for the city. And this is something where, CABA wants to continue this conversation. CABA is a long-standing friend of the city, the Downtown Business Development District, and so, they're very grateful to be able to work this through. I think that, we've appreciated the opportunity. I've gotten to know City Manager Ray a little bit, as well as Jennifer McMahon and Assistant City Attorney Matthew McConnell, and this is kind of like when you get to a negotiation, you can get to yes. And so we're here tonight, and we believe that we've gotten to a yes. And so that's why we respectfully ask for your approval. We have Drew Cesaire from Florida Penguin Productions here as well, in case you have any questions for him. He has shown to be a very willing partner. I know he has gone out, spoken with a number of the different businesses on Corey Avenue. I mean, I know that you are all well aware of the drama and kind of issues that have gone on, but Drew has said, hey, we want to make this a success for everyone. So that's what, and CABA, of course, feels the same. So, if you have any questions for me or others, I have Mr. Alfanador, who's the president of CABA here, as well as Vincent Hunter and Drew. We're here, and again, we're very grateful.
Any question for Ms. Graham while she's up here?
No, thank you. I don't have any questions, but I would like to say it's not unprecedented because probably most of you know, at least, that the St. Pete Beach Classic, which is a road closure event, they've always come and told us what their expenses were and where the money goes. So it's not singling out. It's, I think, a reasonable request by the commissioner, and it's just of interest to the general public since the street is a public street. So it's not singling out. It's really just asking for information.
Okay, yeah, we appreciate that.
Well, and my request still stands because the situation is different. Yes, you're a nonprofit, but the money is being earned through a city asset. And as Commissioner Frislowski said, it's not a unique model, but others who do that tell us and show us where the money has gone. CABA has stood, no, please don't just read me anecdotal things left and right. CABA has stood up here and told us that all of the fund monies driven into the street, we make charitable donations. By the way, I didn't hear not one charitable donation in your anecdotal data. So, because we had discussed the model where we just run the market, and then as the city manager had suggested, and we told him, no, don't do that, we don't need to do this internally, the city would make a donation to the nonprofit to do where the money is, to drive the money into the organization, into the street, to make the street work. I've been asking this now several meetings, and now at 9 o'clock at night you say, well, I'm not going to provide it. Okay, it answers the question. But it doesn't single out CABA, it doesn't single you out, it's done with others. So the question I have is how many vendors I know one of the things was, issues was to get a vendor list. How many vendors are on the vendor list in the application?
I could speak to, I don't know if maybe Drew, would you like to update that?
Do you have that?
I believe it was,
no. We've updated it so many times with
but we have a permit, we have an application. Excuse me, I think I know, we have an application, we put it in, what's the number, please?
All right, give me 1 second,
the reason I stuttered on that is because I believe it's changed since, because.
I'm not saying it's for you to answer.
Yeah, so, and I know Kevin Tucker, who would have that answer 100%, who works with Florida Penguin, is out sick tonight, so.
But you submitted an application. The application exists. It's a piece of paper or it's electronic form. I mean,
I can.
It's a very simple, straightforward question. Because that's been a bone of contention.
125.
Thank you very much.
Do we have any other questions for Mrs. Graham while she's here?
No, I'm in favor of it. I know we've been through a lot here. I just want for it to be successful. I mean, I think that's what we all want, so.
We didn't have a market last Sunday, and I heard a lot of complaints. A lot of people in the city were very unhappy. I just hope that we have something similar, something is good.
Right. And I'm sorry, I need to ask this question again, because I was, even after I thought it was clarified. Is the market a wet zone?
No.
So, because the question I was asked is then why are the businesses that serve alcohol on the street allowing their patrons to leave the premises with alcohol?
The last time this came to the commission, it was a request for a wet zone. This application is a completely new application, and they don't want to make it a wet zone.
Okay.
And I can provide you minutes of that meeting where that was asked for. Yeah.
Right. I just want to get it clear.
Yes.
It's not a wet zone, and the patrons cannot leave those premises with alcohol.
And as far as the number of vendors, it does vary. We talked about it Friday. He had, Sitemap had a different number than the application than the number of vendors on his list. But it's up to 140, depending on the number of vendors, and it's going to change every Sunday.
Right.
So.
Thank you, Jennifer.
That's a large number.
Yeah.
For clarification purposes, because I did send an email based on the last meeting, and I thought I knew what the commission was asking for on the finances for the next 4 months, but because of the conversation, I think it's appropriate to be crystal clear so that you know what to expect in December. What I suggested was just very simple, how much money are you making, subtract what you're spending, and an actual public record that will be submitted. So I just want to go ahead and confirm that from the commission with CABA here so that they have clear understanding on what they have to provide you in December.
So revenues and expenses?
That's it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
A normal financial statement would give us everything that we need. I don't want to give anybody extra work.
Couldn't agree more. I just wanted to clarify with them here so I'm not making the decision for you. I appreciate that.
Audience comments?
Ken Hotman.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Ken Houtman, owner Chill Restaurant, 363 Corey Avenue. Good evening, Mayor, City Commissioners. Appreciate you having me. I want to take a moment to actually thank Drew from Florida Penguin Productions for reaching out last week. Many of us members of CABA have felt left out during this whole process. So it was nice for him to reach out to me and say, hey, I'd like to meet the other businesses on the street and find out what's going on and be a part of the group and the discussion and to help us make sure that the Sunday market's successful, because that is our main goal. I only wish that we'd be able to reach out sooner. I know he had his hand tied from certain parts of CABA that asked him not to reach out to the other businesses, but it was nice that he was able to come out and talk to us. Like I said, I give him a lot of credit for reaching out. His first statement to me as he walked through the door was, I wanted to meet the guy on Corey Avenue that hated me so much. And I just stood back. I was like, what? Well, first of all, Mom taught me you never hate anybody, but I didn't know the guy, so how could I hate him? I know nothing about Florida Penguin Productions. We knew nothing about the organization, so we were upset because we wanted to know. We want to be transparent, have a lot of communication. And that was our biggest problem with the whole process that we've gone on. So we thanked him for coming in. He offered to do another meeting with business owners on Corey Avenue, and it was great. Everybody was like, this is awesome. We were excited to move forward. Back in the day, yeah, we loved Tampa Bay markets. We didn't see that it was broken. But you know what? Now we move forward, and we're excited to move forward with Drew and his company. So I also want to thank the commission, because the commission stepped up and asked a lot of questions that members of CABA were asking and weren't getting answers to. So we appreciate what you've done and had to endure over the last 4 or 5 months and put up with. I apologize personally, because we were left in the dark, and we appreciate that you bring all those things to the forefront and letting us know what's going on. So we look forward to working with Drew. We look forward to working with his staff. We begin a new chapter this Sunday, or we hope we begin a new chapter this Sunday, and keep doing the market the way it's been going on and make it great and keep Corey Avenue great. So the internal issues with CABA may or may not work themselves out. We'll have to find out. We hope they do. We're always asking for an open line of communication and transparency, and that's it. So if there's any other questions, if not, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other comments? Do we have a motion to approve the permit?
So moved. Second.
City Clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
Commissioner Frizlowski,
Yes.
Commissioner Marone,
Yes.
Commissioner Grouse.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Grill,
Yes.
Mayor Petrella,
Yes.
motion carries.
City Clerk, do we need to read
Thank
the
you,
resolution?
everybody.
I'm sorry?
Do we need to read the resolution
No,
for
we
6?
we continued it. It's okay to not read it.
It's going to a workshop, I think, right?
Yes, it's going to the workshop. Yes, item 6A, the resolution is going to a workshop. To Commissioner Frizlowski's point, we're looking forward to a successful Sunday market. Unfortunately, we didn't have one last Sunday, but we're hoping for good things going forward. Item 7C, Commissioner Grill, the city manager's expenses.
Sorry. Okay, so we had said as a commission that we'd be reviewing, have the city manager's expense, not city manager's expenses, but the expenses that have been authorized by the city manager sent to us before the meetings. So from last meeting, we received some update files from the CFO, city CFO. There's basically two categories of payments. I think we've seen those files. One are I'll call the payment list, and the other one are the P cards. And from both of them, I did judgmental sampling. I picked some things that, based on my experience, just to get some, I wanted to get some more information on. They weren't clear. On the payment file from last week, worked with Sheila, our CFO, and there are no issues. Everything was resolved. I reviewed the P card listing for last month. I have a couple of concerns I discussed with the city manager. I don't think that they're not new issues, but they continue. And the first one that concerns me is that we're using P cards for routine, what I call routine, ongoing, repetitive expenses, Microsoft licenses, many just ongoing activities, which I think we could be more productive in putting them under a purchase order, accounts payable type process. And the example is particularly, for licenses, someone's card gets stolen or frozen and the payments can't get made, city comes to screeching halt. Payments don't get made, potentially vendor cuts us off, and then we have an operational issue. So it's cleaner to have these just as a routine accounts payable activity, software license fees, et cetera. Second, from that list, there were 24 transactions. 7 of the transactions didn't have any justification. The CFO had not received any business rationale for that. It's not a new problem. Unfortunately, it was raised in our annual audit, and it was a known issue before that, which is why I think the auditors looked at it. The root cause I discussed with the city manager is a lack of training on the TD Bank system. We use TD Bank. Those are the credit cards, so people need to be trained on how to put those expenses in the system, and more importantly, how we know that these are valid, and not accusing anybody of any irregular activity, but certainly all, all expenses should be justified and explained in the system, or it doesn't even have to be a system. It can be a piece of paper if you're in a paper process, so that you have all the valid justification. So we discussed that, and through procurement, John Taylor, they're working on a fix with that. We also got some reports for this week, so I sent some questions off to the CFO for verification, again, both on the payment file as well as the P cards. The P cards, the report is hot off the press, and I guess by the process, she told me that we have the requester, or the person who spends the money on the card has 30 days in which to put the expenses into the system, so we don't have any view on that at this time, and she sent some updates on the other payment file, which I just haven't had a chance to look at because we had the meeting earlier today. So that's what I have on those, and just we'll continue this process until we don't have to continue this process anymore.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other comments or questions? Thank Thank you. Commissioner Marone, item 7D, the parking app.
I'm bringing this up, it's just something I brought up with the city manager, we've been discussing for months. It's those discs that are on the ground in Paso Grill that allow someone to go on the app and see how many open parking spots are available. I've been trying to kind of pin down what our expenses were on that. And I asked the city manager, I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's about 15,000 a year.
15,000 a year?
A year.
So I asked the city attorney too, how much we're into it for already. And Matthew, do you have numbers on that?
Yeah, we,
It
was 125,000.
thought there was is this Conyer, ParkSmart?
No. This is the disc company.
The disc company.
We had the discussion,
And my numbers are for...
we had the discussion when we were talking about expanding that to Corey Avenue. That's
No,
what
there was an amendment to something related to parking in January, Alex. I don't know if that was...
That's when we had that discussion. But it's, because Corey Avenue it was $35,000?
35 was Corey and 15 and 16.
And that's approximately...
about 80, 90 spaces.
So after...
There's an initial cost of buying the disc.
Right.
Yeah, this is a maintenance cost.
And then there's a maintenance.
That's what I was talking about, the 50
So
it's about that for maintaining.
It's another cop at South Village.
So after monitoring the effectiveness or lack of effectiveness of this system, I have determined that it is ineffective. We have no parking spots at 10:30 in the morning in Paso Grill, yet there are 70 cars lined up coming down. So that means they're ignoring it. It's not happening. I've talked to the residents. Some of the residents are concerned about trip and fall issues. This company has been sued in the past. Anytime you put something in the public right away, somebody's going to fall and someone's going to sue. That's really not the issue, though. The real issue is we're spending money on something that we don't need and the residents don't want. I brought it up at the town hall. Y'all were there. I think 2 or 3 people clapped, but most of the people that I've talked to, all of them said we don't want it. A lot of them thought it was tied in to pay parking, and that's how we gave people tickets, or that's how we could tell if someone had paid. I said, no, they have no connection to each other whatsoever. Like, oh, well, then why do we have them? And when I explain why we have them, they say, well, there's no way that works, because we're full on the weekends, and people are still coming down here. And that's really what it would do, is it would deter you. If there were 3 spots left, by the time they got there, those spots would be gone. If there's 100 spots there, it doesn't matter whether they look at the parking app or not. When they roll in, there's going to be spots available. So I asked code enforcement, does it help you to decide where to give tickets? They said no, because they can look down Gulf Way and look at a straight shot and see where most of the cars are, and then they'll go to that area and see if the parking is expired. So I talked to the city manager several times and said, give me the data, what's the empirical data that supports its value to our residents. And, the response is basically, if it's not working, let's not do it. And I don't think it's useful. And we're going to tear up Gulf Way.
If you throw it to vote now, I'm with you.
If we tear up Gulf Way, which we're gonna, I guess, I don't know, we don't have all the money for it now. I thought we did.
No, but we're going to reprogram that for October. So
then it gets repaved, and those things would have to go down, and they're talking about making them flush, which means if we end the contract, after that, we have to dig them out of the ground and then fill a bunch of holes, which will continue to reopen, because once you start filling holes, you need to completely repave. So if we're going to end it, we end it before we renew the new contract. So I wanted to have it as a discussion, and after the discussion, I'm going to make a motion.
The discussion in January, I said exactly what you said. I don't think it has changed behavior. I did vote against it for expanding it to Corey Avenue. It does give you data, parking data, but it doesn't change behavior, because if you're coming, look, there's only so many people that can live near the beach. Everyone else comes from inland. If you're leaving Seminole or Largo and looking at your phone, are you going to stay home because it shows that there are no spots available, or are you going to chance it? I grew up in New York. You grow up around the city. You go to the city for parking, what did you do? You drove around the block until you found a spot. And sometimes it took you an hour, but you drove around the block. No app was going to tell me where to go or not go. So it does give you data about usage, how many times people change. It does give you some data. But for the money, I don't believe we're getting our money's worth. I didn't believe it then, I don't believe it now. Just that it did pass, but with one dissenting vote.
Yeah, and the issue is that you can't prove a negative, right? So while there are 70 people driving around Paso Grill, we don't know that it would have been 120 if we didn't have the information available. But at the end of the day, this was put in because the complaint in Paso Grill was people are driving around looking for parking spots. And is there a way to try to guide them to the spots? Is there a way to provide the information so they know that there's no spots available? We try to put something in place to address that concern. But at the end of the day, if the community doesn't want it and it's okay with people driving around, whether 70 is going to go to 80, to 90, to 100, we'll pull them out. I mean, because we're spending money, to spend money on a solution that people don't want, it really, at the end of the day, is counterproductive. So, there are two situations where there is a little bit of an exception. 9th Avenue, we have 2-hour parking. And the sensors do tell us when the 2 hours have been exceeded. And it does notify code enforcement, parking enforcement, that we have had a car for longer than 2 hours. So I would suggest that we keep those, because otherwise, to go and visually check that the 2 hours have been exceeded is almost an impossibility. And if we don't have that, then those spaces are going to be consumed by beachgoers like this. The other discussion that we had up here on Corey Avenue is exactly what Commissioner Grill is saying. It had to do with data. Because there has been a lot of discussions on Corey Avenue as to whether do we have the right number of parking spaces? Are people parking here to go to the beach? Are people parking here to go and catch the Sunrunner? So by having the sensors put here, and the ones that we put in here, we're going to put them on the ground because of the market. We didn't want them to be above ground. Too many people walking around in that area. It will give us information whether, if we're going to set up, saying 2-hour parking, 3-hour parking on Corey Avenue, to make sure that the employees are not using the primary parking spaces, to make sure that people are not going to the beach, to make sure that people. So it does give you the ability to set up better parking solutions here on Corey, but those are the two areas where the information actually can be used for enforcement. The other ones were strictly for driving people to the right places, and fine, we'll get rid of those. But I will just ask you to think about 9th Avenue and Corey Avenue for getting the right information to make the right parking decisions.
But for Corey Avenue, we approved the expense. There was a motion to buy new discs and install them.
Correct, yes.
So, and we said if that didn't work or give us an answer telling us we had a problem, we would go pull them out.
Correct.
So if we're going to pull them out of there, can we just transfer them over here and cancel that other purchase?
Yeah, we can, right.
Okay. Okay.
Would the ones on Corey Avenue be under the surface, or would they be actually?
It's the same sense. It's the same sense. We're just going to flush them down.
Yeah, flush.
But if we flush, then if we pull them out, then we're going to have to repave, no?
Yeah, we'll have to do something but I don't want to have them above ground on Corey Avenue.
Right,
with the market there.
Can't be with the market.
Right.
Even flush, they're going to be an issue.
No.
I think.
So this would be not renewing the contract?
Only to the extent that we need to for a very small amount for 9th Avenue. I think if we remove them from 9th Avenue is just going to be crazy.
So, all right, so I'd move that we remove the parking app discs and remove, the city remove itself from that contract as it relates to Paso Grill sans the few parking spots on 9th Avenue, which I assume that they will resubmit a proposal for just that area.
Right.
That's my motion.
Is there anything stopping us from, when would that be effective?
I would like it to be effective ASAP.
As soon as possible.
Yeah.
We'll check it. I know the contract is expiring in a few months, but we'll look at the termination clauses, and if we can cancel earlier, we'll do that.
Cancel it as soon as possible, subject to any cancellation, early cancellation penalty.
I'll second that.
And can we add on to that motion that we, I don't know what the right wording is, cancel the previous approval for the purchase of additional discs and services for Corey Avenue?
Okay.
Do we have a second on the amendment to the motion?
I'll second it.
Yes, as long as there's no, same thing, as long as there's no penalties or anything like that.
Yes.
So we essentially have two motions on the floor. We have a motion on the floor pending for the amendment. So we need to take a roll call vote on just amending the main motion, and then we'll address the main motion with the amendment. So we're just adding in the cancel the previous approval amendment made by Vice Mayor Grill. Commissioner Frislowski?
Yes.
Commissioner Marone?
Yes.
Commissioner Grouse?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Grill?
Yes.
Mayor Petrola?
Yes.
Okay, then we add that into the motion that was previously made by Commissioner Marone, seconded by Commissioner Frislowski, and now we'll take a roll call vote on that. So Commissioner Marone?
Yes.
Commissioner Grouse?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Grill?
Yes.
Commissioner Frislowski?
Yes.
Mayor Petrola?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Commissioner Marone, do we need further discussion on the beach
I want to thank the
management?
mayor for providing the information that you provided. It's very insightful. We don't need to go into any further detail. However, I would like, since we mentioned Silver Sands and Commissioner Grill more specifically talked about getting them engaged in the process, at least from an informational standpoint. I think if we could give, I would like us to give permission to the city attorney to engage with their attorney at the very least, and if the permission is granted, since we already have a relationship and a settlement agreement, and we communicate with their attorney, that we at the very least can speak to their attorney, our attorney, and talk to their attorney about what we know are the issues in play, and see what their temperature is about helping, if they can or are willing to help, with either the county or the city, the county or the Army Corps of Engineers with working us out of this conundrum. Now, maybe there's nothing they can do. Maybe there are things that they are willing to do. But I see too many times in these situations where these folks are sitting here, these folks are sitting here, these people are talking over here, these people are talking about these people don't, no one's talking to them but about them, and then nothing happens except for people get more divided, and we find out that we probably could resolve something very easily that we didn't even talk to the other side about. So, and I don't even want to call them the other side, they're our side, they're our residents. So,
So I don't have a name of, I don't.
I do, I know.
But I don't know if they've engaged their lawyer. I don't know if they've, so.
I know who he is. I could call him and find
I
out
think that's
if
a
he's
good
still
idea.
on the case or
I
not.
think it's
Got to talk.
yeah.
Okay.
I just think it'd be, because you are engaged, have been engaged for a long time with their lawyer, it just seems the most appropriate way to go about it. It's not a legal way, it's just a professional way.
Okay. It's just a phone call.
Thank you.
That's all I have, thank you.
All right, the last item is item 7F, a discussion on the Don Cesar boat ramp and the ongoing parking challenges and kayak situation. A few commission meetings ago, I did speak with the Assistant City Attorney a few days ago about an update on when the ordinance might be ready for review on that. But the reason I brought it up tonight, and the residents who live there were actually here up until, well, it's been a few hours that we've been here, but they were here up until about 20, 30 minutes ago. Because I'm getting repeated calls, emails, and so on that said when we last had the discussion, they were quite happy afterwards, just saying, look, enforcement is working. Whoever's showing up, giving tickets and letting them know that they can't park here. And then it seems that over the last week or 2 weeks, that's let up. And so I've got pictures every evening of the vendor parking their truck illegally, again, right in front of the "Don't Park Here" sign. You know, people being there until 11:20, 11:30 at night, not just on the weekends, but on Mondays and Tuesdays. And so I just want to bring that to the commission's attention, and again, just ask the city manager to take a look into parking enforcement in that area, just to have the additional, the 3 additional part-time individuals that we hired, just to keep an eye on that. And then, I don't know if you saw, there was a huge accident there, again, a couple days last week, where a truck rolled all the way back on the water in that ramp. And so I think the more we can have, you know, enforcement in that area, that would be great.
A truck, a commercial truck?
No, somebody backing in for their boat, either to put the boat in or put the boat out. They just
put it in park.
Yeah. No, I
Just slid right in.
I didn't see that, but then we need to go and clean it. Because what happens is that
Fuel.
mildew aggregates at the bottom of it, and no matter how strong your vehicle is, it will get slide back out. So we need to clean it, because that could be a problem for us. Okay, thank you.
You thought he was referring to the kayak truck, huh?
They know not to put the truck in. They pull right up to the ramp and then.
But, I mean, Mr. Mayor, I mean, if the problem's not getting better, I mean, and maybe it's for city attorney, city manager, I mean, is there another step we can do? Take it to the next level. How many parking tickets are we going to give? I mean, I think it sounds like they're just writing it off as a cost of doing business.
Right. There are 2 things that are going on in parallel. Okay, so we're looking at changing the ordinance, and city attorney is working on that to move the ordinance to a earlier start time. We are also looking at issuing a right-of-way permit as a way to monitor and manage this process, and we're trying to mimic something that we do with contractors and everything else that use the boat ramps. So we're pursuing both of those, and I don't know which one is going to be ready first, but both of those are being pursued as a long-term solution. Okay, I do need to talk to parking to keep the parking enforcement going until those solutions are in place, because I think when either 2 solutions gets implemented, I think they're going to be out of there, because I don't know that their business model will work with the earlier closing time. So it is what it is. They have not been the most exemplary model citizens. So I mean, absent of that, I mean, it could be a nice amenity for our tourists and residents to take, but they don't seem to want to be doing the things the right way. So,
because again, it's what actions can we take to change behavior?
Right.
At the end of the day, that's what we need to do. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next we have item 8, reports. City Clerk, please.
So Assistant City Attorney O'Connell and I have scheduled the makeup session for the Sunshine Training for August 22nd at 10 a.m. We have 11 individuals that were unable to attend the last 2 meetings. I've received 3 RSVPs and 2 no thank yous and 6 no responses. So I was going to talk to Matthew tomorrow, now he knows, about whether we want to keep that or if we want to talk about trying to see. I'll reach back out to them again, the board members, and remind them that they need to RSVP, so that Matthew and I aren't really standing around. So that's kind of where we're at with that. The social media policy, I've started working on phase 1 of that. I did some research with 11 different social media policies from other municipalities, and I'm working with Jennifer McMahon. So we met today to kind of go over like a game plan and identified some key individuals that we're going to meet with sometime later this month. So it is moving along. We want to get other staff members involved who are utilizing social media and not just make a policy in a silo. I want to involve the individuals that use it. So that's where we're at on that. And that's about it for me.
Thank you. City Manager?
Yes, I got 2 updates for you. One is I need to hire a part-time rec leader. Those are the ones that help with the after-school programs. Is a part-time job that makes $10 or $12 an hour. So I mean, it's entry-level work, and those are time sensitive because the after-school program is going to be starting soon. The other one is Mike attended a meeting at the county related to the reclaimed water program, and the whole reclaimed water world is about to significantly change, and I wanted him to provide the update to the commission because I guess your meeting was just last week, right?
Friday.
Friday. So.
The county is proceeding to spend $63 million to install automated meter devices in all of the reclaimed water boxes. And what this will do is it will meter the flow rate, and there will be a tiered billing system. So a single-family residence that gets billed every 2 months for 15,000 gallons, I believe is what they're going to begin with. So that's a tier 1 rate, and then that rate will be some number that they'll come up with. If you want to use more water than that, it's still available, but the meter will then charge you a higher tiered rate for the purchase of that water for your irrigation. That's all single-family residents. They haven't gotten into the commercial side of details quite yet. They're working to the north end of the county, working their way south. It's a 2027 full-up activation target date. They are struggling a little bit to meet their goals on how many boxes they change each week, but they're getting into their groove, so to speak. And what will happen for all of us folks that live here on the beach, a contract crew will show up. They will remove the existing box, the reclaimed water box. They will remove the valve that's inside of it. They will replace that valve with the new automated valve in a slightly larger size box, and they'll clean it up and move on. And these are cellular connected devices, so there's no longer a need for the county to drive around in trucks and check anything. It's all connected up. And then on the county app, you'll be able to go on and you'll be able to monitor your water usage real time and give you information about your consumption and where things are. St. Pete Beach may move forward in time on the installations because of our connection to Tierra Verde and the volume of water that we use. But they have not set that schedule yet. So we just want to give everybody a heads up that if you see somebody at some point in the future in your front yard replacing that box, that's what it's all about. And when they start on St. Pete Beach, they will let us know, and we'll be able to use our social media to put that word out. And I'll give the commission, of course, a heads up, hopefully a month ahead of time.
Yeah, so the part that we don't know yet as to how it's going to play out is that we have an ordinance that we charge residents a flat fee for reclaimed water. So I don't know if the county is going to come and tell us we need to change your ordinance, which typically they don't have the right to come and tell us that. We do buy the water on a meter basis, so the amount that we use is paid to the county on a meter basis. So to the extent that people use less water, we pay less, and that's one of the reasons why we put some of the conservation programs in place a couple of years ago. But I wanted to make sure the commission knew that this is what the county's plan is, but we still don't know how exactly is going to get executed vis-a-vis the ordinances that we have and their ability to impose a rate on our residents that is not consistent with the ordinances that we have in place. So more to come, but I wanted at least to get the information that county is disseminating.
Yeah, so this is 2023. Their goal is to be active in 2027. So we have plenty of time to work out all the details about how exactly that's going to affect our residents and our ordinance.
Is that going to require a change in our agreement with the county then?
No, because we pay them by the meter already. So,
So it's just-
the question is going to be what mechanism are they going to use to try to force our hand to, impose a meter-based system on our residents?
Well, would they remove the city's meter then and just meter direct? I mean,
It could be. I mean, I don't want to tell you exactly how they're going to do it, but I know that there is going to be.
What would happen.
Right. Yeah.
That's why I was assuming it would take some kind of a change in the agreement, but maybe not.
Or they'll just add up all the meters and say, here's the bill.
Yeah.
No. But the system is not completely theirs, you see. The system is owned by them all the way through the transmission lines, but all of the laterals, as we painfully know, are ours. So it is a hybrid system.
Yeah.
I don't know if they plan to just buy the system from us, and we had discussions 4 years ago about selling the system to them. Right.
Well, it's a grand plan with a large number of details yet to be worked out.
So they think that $63 million will reduce their deficit?
It was not as much about controlling the flow of water as to being able to balance the availability of reclaimed water with the production of the sanitary sewer system cast out.
And if I'm not mistaken, that their project includes the regular water lines because they're replacing the meters on those as well.
That's been going on for several years now.
Yep.
We're almost through that process.
Yep.
But they are trying to change behavior to be more responsible for those that water, too much. They're trying to balance the availability of water throughout the system. As you know, the Tierra Verde is fed through our transmission lines, and looking to be fair on the whole thing. And they're looking to move their personnel from monitoring meters and replacing meters and driving around in trucks all around the county doing that work. So if they have a completely automated system, they'll be able to repurpose all of that equipment, all those vehicles, and all those people to other duties. And so they're thinking very, very large. They're thinking at the county level. We're one of the 19 or so municipalities. So we're never going to lose reclaimed water, but we will be closely monitoring, and you'll be able to watch it yourself.
Thank you.
That's it.
City Attorney, please.
Yes, just one update on the Repair Guy 1 regarding the barge dock at Egan Park case. As I reported last time, they did file for Chapter 7 bankruptcy in federal court. There has been a judge assigned, there's been a trustee assigned, and we did file the proper paperwork so that we're a creditor. There is a meeting of the creditors tomorrow. We'll attend that. The sad news, obviously, is that Chapter 7, as opposed to a reorganization, is a liquidation of all their assets and an attempt to pay off their creditors. Their creditors, as of right now, are 27 listed creditors, total liability of $808,000. The assets and equipment and everything total of the vendor is $72,000. So you could easily do the math and figure out that, they liquidate whatever they have, which isn't even $100,000, and there's $808,000 in creditors to pay. Typically, cities are not the first in line to get paid. So we'll go through this. We'll be at the meeting and make sure that we're still in the game. but right now I'm not seeing a lot of hope on this one. And just so you know, like our claim is twofold, which was the actual money that we paid out, which was $92,000, and then we asked for liquidated damages. So that's, you know, that's that. So just keep you informed as it goes through the process. But unfortunately, cities, I guess, are not high on the priority list.
Nothing there.
Yeah, he has nothing.
They had the one barge done.
Huh?
Sorry.
But that's got to be liquidated too now. Everything, he had nothing. I mean, tons of debt.
Thank you.
Thank you for the good news.
Okay.
I have nothing to report in District 4.
Commissioner Krasnowski. Just one thing. Our next meeting 2 weeks from today, on August 22nd, I need to leave early, so I'm not sure what's going to be on the agenda, but I'll need to leave by 8 o'clock. Okay. So I just wanted to let everybody know well in advance. So,
Thank you. Commissioner Grow?
Yeah, a couple of quick items. Just to get another update on Duke Energy, there was a call last week. The city manager took the call. I wasn't able to attend, but Duke has pulled out about another 18 or 19 of these half poles around the city. We're getting additional info from Duke as far as what they call the complex situations, which are the poles owned that the other telecommunication providers, so the Frontiers, Spectrums, et cetera, have to move their wires off of onto the new poles, so then somebody can get rid of the old poles. So we're trying to get that list so we can reach out to our contacts there and say, what do you guys do? So another 18, so it's 25, so we're up to 30, 40 some odd poles at least that have come out across the city. More to come. Just on, on the paving and the reclaimed water, I mean, I've called in at least four reclaimed water breaks in the last week. You saw me one last week on the way home from the meeting. We've had two on Gulf Winds Drive. I had one in front of my house, which it's every 2 years. It lets me know that it's there. So it went. I'm on first name basis with the call center, the person on the second shift call center at Pinellas County Utilities. I don't know, it's just that time I asked the contractor, why is it breaking? He said it's Florida and they break. But it's a problem. We've got multiple breaks, and I'm sure Public Works is well aware of this. Gulf Winds Drive, I'm afraid the road's not going to make it. I've said this before. We really need to start thinking about another plan on what we're going to do. I mean, there were two breaks within the week at a couple 100 feet apart, laterals, right? And that required a backhoe to go in. One of them, I'll be honest, I dropped my title that's in the front there. It says Vice Mayor, and they actually fixed it. They got a crew out overnight to fix it. But I shouldn't have to go. I mean, anyway, it's just continues to be problematic. I wanted to clarify something I mentioned on the social media policy at the last meeting. I did misspeak. We do have a social media policy. I wasn't aware of it, so shame on me. I don't know if others were aware of it. So we do have a policy, but I do believe it still needs to be enhanced, and as the city clerk told us, she's working to enhance it. It was a good first step, but more to be done. So I just wanted to correct that. And last but not least, I wanted to pass on, at least to the public and those few people who are still here, congratulations to our assistant city attorney. For those who didn't know, he successfully passed his review process and examination by the Florida Bar for board certification in city, county, and local government. So congratulations to the assistant city attorney.
Good job.
And as somebody pointed out, he achieved this distinction in his first year of eligibility, which did surprise me one bit, but congratulations.
Thank you. Commissioner Kraus?
Nothing in District 1.
Great. Thank you, everyone. This meeting is adjourned.
So Andrew, you got